Pokémon. Starting with Greninja, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 450. Thinking of this, Luo Feng was speechless. He saw Luo Feng flying directly towards the magician's Lugia, and then he used an air blast and fired a demonic skill. When the magician's Lugia saw this scene, he was shocked from the bottom of his heart. He thought that this Luo Feng was just a simple skin change, but who knew that his skills were all evil? Time didn't let the magician's Lugia think too much. It instantly took off into the air and dodged Luo Feng's air blast, but Luo Feng's second attack followed and flew towards it. After dodging the first skill of the first Luo Feng, the magician's Lugia had no time to dodge again, and could only take a hard hit. This made him, who had just stood up from the ground, a little collapsed. He had just climbed up, and now he fell down again. The ground was almost his home. Why not just do push-ups? Lugia was originally a flying elf, but Luo Feng didn't care about the face of his kind at all, and knocked his opponent down crazily. Just when the magician's Lugia wanted to stand up, the sudden pain in his body brought him back to his senses, and he was shocked to find that Luo Feng's skills were accompanied by evil aura and corrosive energy. The evil aura was like a thorn in the flesh and followed the skills to hit him. This made the magician's Lugia feel uncomfortable. He couldn't beat Luo Feng in the first place, and now he was injured, which made him even worse. Zumu, who was standing aside, saw this scene and felt a little funny. Not to mention Luo Feng's combat power. Just saying that Luo Feng's dark state was enough to give the magicians a headache. The evil skills are not that simple. Its attacks are not just physical damage. Its corrosive energy damage is madly torturing the opponent every moment. The kind of wounds that can't be healed at all make the elves that need high-intensity combat simply unable to bear it. Now the magician Lugia felt this way. Suddenly, Zumu heard the priestess beside the magician shouting to Cresselia, "Cresselia, purify!" Cresselia, who had been waiting for a long time, suddenly used her skills on the magician's Lugia. It must be said that Cresselia's purification directly redeemed the magician's Lugia. I saw a white light on the magician's Lugia. In less than a moment, Lugia, who was still sad just now, was directly resurrected. Seeing this scene, Zumu couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This Cresselia is a dish, but it must be said that she is indeed the nemesis of evil elves. This purification alone is enough to make most evil elves regret it forever. But it's a pity that if Luo Feng is restrained like this, he won't have to say that he is an elf following Zumu in the future. Thinking of this, Zumu shouted to Luo Feng on the battlefield, "Luo Feng, fight quickly. Do you want to go back to eat?" After that, Zumu calmly took out a sofa and a coffee table from the family ring he had obtained before. He also took out a pot of tea, sat on the sofa and drank it slowly. Seeing Zumu's leisurely look, the magician was a little exasperated at this time, and only heard him shouting at Zumu, "Boy, I admit that you are very strong, but if you are like this, it's a bit too arrogant." After that, he looked at Zumu with an angry face. Hearing the magician's words, Zumu couldn't help but feel a little funny. What kind of stuff is this hunter guild? In terms of combat power, it's nothing. But in terms of talking nonsense, it's really better than one. One by one, they just talk a lot of nonsense, and they still have to shout a few words before they die, to brush their presence. Thinking about it, Zumu said loudly to the magician, "President of the Hunters Guild, if you are just talking nonsense, then I really have to admit defeat. Haha, it's so funny. Luo Feng, hurry up." After that, Zumu ignored the magician. He continued to drink tea slowly and leisurely. Seeing that Zumu was no longer paying attention to him, the magician directly shut himself up. He had never encountered such a situation in all these years. In the past, his opponents were not as good at pretending as this brat in front of him. Everyone was very civilized together. Before the fight, they cursed each other together, and then the elves started fighting, and finally the winner laughed at the loser. You see how harmonious and reasonable this battle scene is. Now, this person is fighting while drinking tea leisurely and sitting on the sofa. Seeing such a scene, the magician suddenly felt a little confused. and he was confused when he teamed up with the priestess. Finally, the magician couldn't stand it anymore and shouted to his Lugia, "Lugia, use all your strength." Hearing the magician's words, Lugia was in a state of bitterness. "Brother, if I could beat this black Lugia, would I still stay here? I would have gone up to beat him. The key is that I can't beat him, so I went up twice and lay on the ground twice. How much is that?" But now Luo Feng doesn't care what his opponent thinks. Now he just wants to knock down these two annoying things in front of him and go home to eat. Luo Feng flew behind Cresselia in an instant, and used the same trick again, hitting Cresselia's head with a wing attack. Poor Cresselia is not a traditional combat Pokémon, she is just a cute auxiliary Pokémon. Seeing Luo Feng attacking her, Lugia on the side hurriedly shouted to Cresselia, "Cresselia, get out of the way." Hearing Lugia's words, Cresselia suddenly reacted. She hurriedly dodged Luo Feng's sudden attack. Unfortunately, not to mention her combat reaction, her combat power is very different from Luo Feng. So, before she could react at all, Luo Feng's attack had already hit her head hard. With a plop, Cresselia fell heavily to the ground. Seeing this scene, Lugia on the side couldn't help but feel a little anxious, and cursed indignantly in his heart. "That's it? You dare to say you are a divine beast with this combat level?" I really don't know how her trainer became the president of the Hunters Guild. Although he was not happy in his heart, the magician Lugia couldn't say it. After all, he was at least a friendly army, just a little useless. When he looked up again, he saw Luo Feng looking at him with a mocking expression. At this moment, the magician Lugia felt an unspeakable fear in his heart. "No way. Are you going to do this for the third time? Boss, please don't." Please. Chapter 451, Done. "Why is this old devil looking at me?" Seeing Lugia's cowardly look, Luo Feng smiled disdainfully, and said to Lugia with expectation, "Do you want to lie down by yourself or do you want me to help you?" Hearing Luo Feng's words, Lugia looked at Cresselia who was lying on the ground, and then thought of himself lying on the ground. At this time, he really had a lot of pain in his heart. If he lay on the ground, it would not be a big deal, but if he did not lie on the ground, then the old devil in front of him would definitely help him lie down. Thinking in his heart, Lugia simply decided to give it a try, and saw him fall directly to the ground and make a face of touching porcelain. It seemed to tell Luo Feng, "Don't touch me, or I will fall." Seeing its appearance, Luo Feng grinned. "It is better to be a bad guy. You see, you don't even need to do it. You can defeat the opponent directly with deterrence. Otherwise, how can Zumu live so well?" Just when Luo Feng was thinking about it, the magician Lugia suddenly took off into the air, and a divine bird hit Luo Feng. At this time, Lugia was secretly happy. He was smart. He lowered his opponent's guard first, and then attacked him unexpectedly. Unfortunately, he had just been hit twice by Luo Feng, but he still didn't learn his lesson and ignored Luo Feng's fighting power. So, Luo Feng dodged at a strange speed in his surprised eyes. He dived at Lugia with his backhand, and a large number of storms condensed around Luo Feng. Then the hurricane turned into air swords in an instant. With a sound of breaking through the air, he shot directly at Lugia. Originally, Lugia could have dodged it, but unfortunately, Luo Feng's dive just now directly shortened the distance between Luo Feng and Lugia. This close attack made Lugia unable to avoid it. After all, Lugia was also a veteran on the battlefield, and he tried his best to dodge. But what shocked him was that the speed of Luo Feng's sword suddenly increased in the air, and he could only dodge a few swords by force. Suddenly, he saw the magician standing behind him, and realized that if he continued to dodge, then his trainer would have to bear Luo Feng's attack directly. He changed his mind at this moment and decided not to dodge anymore. The next moment, a sword of air pierced Lugia's heart fiercely. Lugia looked at the sword of air on his heart. It really hurt. This is not the script in his mind. In his script, shouldn't Luo Feng just be hit by him and lose his action? Not to mention whether Luo Feng was attacked or not. Just saying that Luo Feng's attack was really too brutal. The severe pain from his body did not allow him to think more. The winner is the king and the loser. One careless move and he has already lost everything. Being hit in the heart by Luo Feng, Lugia could clearly feel that his end was coming. Just when Lugia was about to die, he used up his last strength to look back at the magician. He knew that once he died, the magician would probably follow in his footsteps. This is war. Thinking of this, Lugia lost consciousness directly. The scene just happened in a moment. The magician didn't even react to what happened, and his elf had already died. Seeing Lugia, who had been with him day and night, fall in front of him, the magician reacted, and his heart suddenly tightened. He was filled with anger and shouted at the dead Lugia, "Waste, all waste, you are useless, you are worse than the dog in front of the door." Zumu on the other side saw the magician's appearance and couldn't help but feel that Lugia's death was not worth it. Is this the magician that Lugia was willing to sacrifice his life for? A scornful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. That's it. I've said it before, that Hunters Guild is not a powerful organization at all. He can beat them with one hand. Why can't they think straight? It's said that life should be the most important thing in everything, but what about them? They come one by one for free. Thinking in his heart, Zumu said to Luo Feng calmly, "Luo Feng, do it." At this moment, Cresselia, who had just been knocked to the ground by Luo Feng, woke up. Now that she has regained consciousness, she is a little confused. What is the current situation on the field? How did Lugia die? Cresselia, who felt that she could no longer see the situation on the field, was a little confused. Wasn't it just a short while? How could it be like this now? Thinking in her heart, Cresselia saw Luo Feng, who was showing off his power in the sky. Again, she shook her wings and soared into the sky again, and fiercely raised a gust of wind to hit Luo Feng. Luo Feng was just about to attack the magician and the priestess. Before Luo Feng attacked, Cresselia's attack was the first to arrive in front of Luo Feng. Luo Feng, who felt the energy fluctuation, dodged Cresselia's attack directly. Luo Feng had a fucking idiot in his heart, but he didn't know whether to say it or not. He looked at Cresselia helplessly. "Sister, you said you are so weak, so don't provoke me, okay? I was thinking of knocking you out to give you a chance to live, but you really don't want to." Thinking of this, Luo Feng fired a beam of absolute zero directly at Cresselia. "Goodbye." Cresselia, who had just gotten up from the ground, was still a little inflexible. Hit directly by Luo Feng's light, ice formed on her body bit by bit. Seeing Cresselia's appearance, Luo Feng smiled contemptuously and flapped his wings again. The air around Cresselia suddenly began to condense. With a bang, Cresselia was directly blown up by the air around her. As the ice on her body fell off, she fell to the ground again. It must be said that as a king among Lugia, Luo Feng's attack is not so easy to resist. Cresselia fell to the ground, covered with wounds, but this little girl was still very strong. She stood up from the ground again and flew towards Luo Feng without hesitation. Luo Feng saw Cresselia's appearance. "This silly child, can't you tell what he is thinking?" Seeing that she is a girl, I don't want to bother with her, but she came to challenge the bottom line again and again. She was really struggling on the edge of death. Is she going to live or not? At this time, Luo Feng didn't care about her. He closed his eyes and hit Cresselia's head with an air blast. Cresselia couldn't dodge Luo Feng's attack at all. He was hit hard on the head by Luo Feng and fell to the ground dying. The priestess on the side saw Cresselia's appearance and shouted loudly, "Cresselia!" Hearing the priestess' words, Luo Feng flew directly into the sky. Several air masses appeared around him again, gradually turning into air swords. Seeing this situation, the priestess directly blocked the magician in front of her, turned her head, and looked at the magician affectionately. Chapter 452 A bloody story is coming. Seeing the priestess's appearance, the magician was stunned. While the magician was stunned, the priestess hugged the magician and said to him lovingly, "Magician, you know, I have always loved you, but I am worried, I am afraid that I am not worthy of you, so I have been working hard, and I have come to this position step by step. I am not doing it for anything else, just because I want to stand with you." The somewhat confused magician heard the priestess' words, and tears gradually welled up in his eyes. He looked at the priestess in front of him. This little girl who originally needed his protection everywhere has grown up. How could he not know what the priestess thinks? He knows, but he always thinks that he can become the president of the Hunters Guild because of his father. The priestess is different. She really relies on her own strength to reach this position step by step. Being with the priestess will only delay her, so he can see it clearly. but he has never said it. This scene was seen by Zoomu, and Zoomu's head was full of black lines. Why did this scene seem familiar? Isn't this the affectionate confession of a great righteous person before his death in ordinary TV shows? Why did he get into trouble now? Don't they know that if they do this, Zoomu will be the same as a villain? You like to play dog blood like this, right? Okay, then I will fulfill your wish and let you two die together. Luo Feng, who had been flying in the sky, watched the affectionate dialogue between the two people. He suddenly felt sick in his heart. He saw the air sword beside him, instantly aimed at the two people who were hugging each other affectionately, and shot out quickly. The priestess who was blocking the magician was instantly hit, and she didn't even have the ability to react, and fell directly into the magician's arms. Looking at the priestess in his arms, the magician instantly lost the ability to move, and his mind was blank. At this moment, he heard Zoomu's voice in his ears. "What's up, our magician? I told you to run away early. You refused to run. Now you're done, right? You're both involved." The magician, who was still in a daze, heard Zoomu's words. His face flushed instantly. He wanted to teach Zoomu a lesson, but he didn't have the strength yet. The priestess in the magician's arms was also like that, and she also sacrificed her life for the magician. Looking at the traces of battle around him, the magician's sadness intensified. He shouted loudly to Zoomu, "Boy, don't be too proud. I tell you, you can never imagine the power of our Hunters Guild. If you kill me today, my father will avenge me. I admit that you are strong, but you can't resist my father at all." After saying that, the magician looked at Zoomu with a sneer on his face, but Zoomu was really helpless now. "Brother, can you look at what you look like now before you talk? You have been beaten down, brother, and you still have the nerve to keep talking harshly here. You can't say this if you eat peanuts while drinking." Thinking of this, Zoomu said to the magician with a look of contempt, "Can you use your brain and look at the situation around you before you speak harshly? Compared with me, Zoomu, do you have this strength?" After speaking, Zoomu looked at Luo Feng calmly. Luo Feng felt Zoom's gaze, with a cold light in his eyes, and fell directly to the ground, walking towards the magician step by step. At this time, the magician was finally scared. He said to Luo Feng in a trembling voice, "You, don't come over." After speaking, he knelt on the ground. All of a sudden, he was no longer the same as when he spoke harshly just now. Instead, he looked like a coward. Seeing that Luo Feng didn't pay any attention to him at all, the magician felt a panic in his heart at this time. He really didn't want to die. He still had wealth and glory to enjoy. As for the death of the priestess just now, he had completely forgotten it. He just wanted to live and didn't care about anything else. The magician kowtowed to Zoomu and said to him, "Brother, big brother, let me go. I will repay you in my next life. Also, and I can let you be the president of our Hunters Union. We will do whatever Big Brother says. If you tell us to go east, we will never go west." After that, he looked at Zoomu expectantly. To his disappointment, Zoomu didn't even look at him. "What a joke. We are all 1,000-year-old foxes. What are you playing with me? Everyone knows how to cut the grass and root it out. You are a big villain and there is no way I can let you go. If I let you go, then any villain who comes to me in the future, will I let them go? Then the villains will regroup and come to me." Young man, the world is not about fighting and killing, but about human relationships. You don't understand this truth. Seeing that Zoomu ignored him, the magician collapsed again. He cursed at Zoomu loudly, "Boy, I tell you, if you kill me, you will never have a good life, and your family will pay the price for your behavior." After that, he laughed. Hearing the magician's words, Zoomu's anger rose up all of a sudden. Leng Mo said to Luo Feng, "Why don't you do it? Are you waiting for me to do it myself?" After that, he looked at the magician with murderous eyes. Seeing that Zoomu was really angry, Luo Feng's heart trembled suddenly. This is not fun to watch. Hurry up, work. Thinking of this, Luo Feng directly hit the magician's head with a wing. The magician who wanted to resist still overestimated his ability and stood up directly. It's a pity that this magician couldn't see what scene he was in. Everyone can see that he has no chance of winning, but this fool has to fight. If it were Zoomu, you would resist against the same human, but you are a divine beast on the opposite side, and he can use skills. You are still fighting with him here. This is not brave. This is stupid. Seeing the magician resisting, Luo Feng was amused. Brother, I am an elf. I can use my skills. You, a mortal, are really stupid to fight me. Although he was thinking, Luo Feng's hands did not slow down at all. He hit the magician's head directly. There was only a snap. The magician fell to the ground. He couldn't die anymore. Chapter 453, A Little Surprise. Seeing the magician who died, Zumu sneered. What the hell? With this level, you dare to come and find trouble? I really don't know who gave him the confidence. Thinking of this, Zumu suddenly felt that this battle was unnecessary. Fighting this thing is as easy as hitting a fly. Seeing Zumu's expression, Luo Feng on the side flew back instantly and said to Zumu, Zumu, how is it? I did a good job this time. Zumu looked at Luo Feng's flattering face and supported his forehead helplessly. He said to Luo Feng, your performance this time is just average. Let's talk about whether you can continue to play next time. After that, without waiting for Luo Feng to say anything, he directly put him into the Pokeball. Looking at the destruction caused by the battle around, Zumu thought a little helplessly. I have been very restrained and just want to avoid causing such great damage. Why is it like this now? I have said it long ago that adults should not fight and kill every day. Look at the destroyed flowers and plants. Isn't that good? Zumu walked out while thinking, this secret realm is really not for people to stay. After staying for a short while, things kept coming to him. Besides, he hadn't seen Sirona for a long time. In this moment, Zumu felt that he missed Sirona more and more. Feeling his inner thoughts, Zumu patted the elf ball on his waist and called Arceus out. He rode on Arceus directly and said to him, Arceus, go home. Hearing Zumu's words, Arceus also felt helpless. He was at least a person at the level of the god of creation. It has been useless for so many chapters. The only use is to be a teleportation array. The key is that Zumu is still very happy to use it. Although he was full of helplessness, he still chose to obey Zumu's orders. Only a white light flashed on the body of a man and an elf. When Zumu opened his eyes again, he was already at the door of his house. At this time, he had to sigh that Arceus's ability was really strong. He didn't care about his talent at all when he was a teleportation array. This is the best use of everything. Thinking of this, Zumu opened the door of his house. As soon as Zumu approached the house, he saw his lovely Sirona eating ice cream bite by bite, and Sirona on the side saw Zumu who had just walked into the house. After taking a look, she continued to pretend that she didn't see it and concentrated on eating ice cream. Seeing Sirona's appearance, Zumu was stunned. What's the matter? Then he reacted. It seemed that his lovely Sirona was angry, because he made her come back to be angry first. Thinking of this, Zumu sat directly next to Sirona and looked at her eating ice cream. She was so cute. Feeling Zumu's hot gaze, Sirona blushed instantly. Then she said to Zumu shyly, Zumu, what are you looking at? Hearing Sirona's words, Zumu smiled faintly and said to Sirona, what am I looking at? I just want to see how beautiful my Sirona is. Zumu's words made Sirona even more shy. Then, Zumu hugged Sirona and said lovingly, Sirona, I know what you think. I don't think of you as a vase. Sirona said angrily, then tell me why you want me to come back first. Zumu, who had already arranged his words in his heart, can be said to be not panicked at all. At this time, Zumu looked into Sirona's eyes and said affectionately, Sirona, it is precisely because I don't think of you as a vase that I let you come back with Aunt Lu. Seeing Sirona's questioning expression, Zumu smiled and said directly, look, there are so many students in your class. I don't think Aunt Lu can protect them alone. If there is any danger, I'm afraid Aunt Lu can't handle it herself, so I let you come along. Hearing Zumu's words, Sirona turned from anger to joy and said to Zumu, Zumu, if you encounter any danger in the future, you must tell me. I don't want to be a vase. I want to fight with you. Sirona's words moved Zumu very much. With such a wife, what else can he say? Seeing Sirona's serious expression, Zumu reached out and hugged her. He said to Sirona, Sirona, it's great to have you by my side. Fortunately, there was no one else around, otherwise he would definitely be fed a mouthful of dog food again. Just when the two were still warm, Zumu suddenly took out 2 tickets and said to Sirona, Sirona, I know you like calligraphy and painting. This is the Magic City art exhibition to be held in Magic City. Let's go and see it together. Seeing Zumiu take out 2 tickets for the Magic City art exhibition, Sirona jumped up happily instantly. She had also heard of this exhibition. Originally, she wanted to go, but when she saw Zumiu busy every day, she had already given up the idea. When she saw Zumiu take out the 2 tickets, don't mention how happy Sirona is now. She hugged Zumiu's neck and kissed Zumiu. She smiled sweetly at Zumiu and said, "Zumiu, thank you." Seeing Sirona's happy look, Zumiu couldn't help but feel a little happy. After all, the happiness of his wife is the most important thing. He looked at the time of the exhibition and found that it was this afternoon. Sirona also saw the time of the exhibition and suddenly became anxious. After all, it was noon and the exhibition would start soon. Thinking of this, Sirona hurriedly said to Zumiu, "Zumiu, the exhibition is about to start. Let's get ready to attend the exhibition." After that, she let go of Zumiu and ran upstairs to change clothes. Seeing Sirona's anxious look, Zumiu smiled knowingly. Zumiu followed Sirona on the road to the exhibition with a look of despair. Women are really magical creatures. It takes more than an hour to change clothes. The most important thing is that when Zumiu asked how long it would take, Sirona would say, "It will be soon." In this way, Zumiu asked more than 10 times, and Zumiu was tired of asking, so he urged Sirona down. Seeing Zumiu's reluctant look, Sirona pouted and said to Zumiu, "Zumiu, don't you like waiting for me?" Hearing Sirona's words, Zumiu was instantly shocked. This was a life-threatening question. Thinking in his heart, Zumiu said directly to Sirona, "Sirona, how could it be? How could I not like waiting for you? I'm just afraid that I won't be able to catch up with the art exhibition later." Hearing Zumiu's words, Sirona nodded with satisfaction. Chapter 454 Art. Seeing Sirona's approving eyes, Zumiu silently breathed a sigh of relief. Women need to be coaxed to talk, especially his own woman. Thinking of this, Zumiu suddenly felt that everything was clear. Zu said to Sirona, "Sirona, let's go faster. The exhibition is about to start." Speaking of this, it has to be said why Zumiu and Sirona walked to the exhibition. This is not because Sirona said that if they teleported directly, they would waste the leisure time now. Just when Zumiu and Sirona just walked to the door of the exhibition, they saw a tutu dog and a woman standing at the door. Seeing the tutu dog at the door, Zumiu and Sirona understood the identity of this tutu dog in an instant. Needless to say, Zumiu, what could he not know? And the education that Sirona received since childhood told her the experience of the tutu dog in front of her. Thinking of this, Sirona hurriedly pulled Zumiu into the exhibition. Although the exhibition was held with great fanfare this time, not many people came. After all, for ordinary people who come to see paintings, they still think that making money to support the family is the most important thing. Just when the two of them walked in front of the tutu dog painting, Mutuo suddenly came out from Zumiu's waist. Facing Zumiu and Sirona with a questioning look on his face, he said, "I really don't understand you humans. What's so good about this painting?" Zumiu, who was standing aside, shook his head helplessly when he heard Mutuo's words. Looking at the painting in front of him, he said to Mutuo, "Have you seen the tutu dog at the door?" Mutuo heard Zumiu's words and looked towards the door. He said to Zumiu with disdain, "Are you talking about the dog with a little green on its tail?" In Mutuo's eyes, the tutu dog with a little green on its tail looked so fragile. He dared to say that as long as he wanted to fight the tutu dog, he only needed one move. He could kill the tutu dog in seconds. Zumiu saw Mutuo's expression and knew that Mutuo didn't know the story behind the tutu dog at all. He said to Mutuo earnestly, "Mutuo, let me tell you a story." After that, Zumiu began to tell the story slowly. A vivid picture suddenly appeared in front of Mutuo. He seemed to see a poor painter who not only had no money, but also his paintings were never favored by anyone. It seemed that there was no one in the world who could see through his heart. Finally, on the next rainy day, he picked up a dirty tutu dog. The painter who saw the tutu dog suddenly felt that the tutu dog and himself were equally pitiful. Both were equally homeless. They both liked to paint, but were there anyone who could appreciate their paintings? Thinking in his heart, The painter reached out and carried the tutu dog into the house. Give him a bath and give him treatment. The tutu dog also understood the painter's thoughts and waited motionlessly for the painter to bandage it. In this way, the painter, who was already poor, had to make a living with the tutu dog, which made his already poor family even worse. But the painter didn't regret it at all. He took tutu dog with him to make a living and paint together every day. Gradually, he found that this tutu dog also had a passion for painting. On a sunny afternoon, the painter looked at the tutu dog in front of him and suddenly had an idea in his mind. He said to tutu dog, "Tutu dog, how about we work together on a painting?" Hearing the painter's words, tutu dog wagged its tail happily. The painter, who got the response, was even happier. They lived together and painted together in the days to come. Unexpected things happen in the world, and people are subject to misfortunes at any time. The painter's body couldn't bear the poverty all day long, and the painter fell ill. But now the painter had no money to go to the hospital for treatment. It can even be said that they didn't even have enough money to eat. Now they are simply trying to make fun of themselves in misery. Finally, on a rainy night, the seriously ill painter couldn't hold on and put down his favorite brush and his dearest friend. With his last attachment to the world and his passion for painting, he left the world forever. The painter left, and only Tutu was left. Tutu recalled that he used to spend every day with the painter. Sad tears also flowed from his eyes. But he did not become decadent. He just continued to work hard in this world with the painter's will. Finally, a year after the painter left the world, Tutu finally completed his and the painter's work. It was a bustling street market, and every place was so bustling. But a trace of loneliness could be seen on everyone's face. This is the truest state of mind of Tutu and the painter. There is a sense of fireworks everywhere in the world, but where else can Tutu and the painter go? Kalman, who heard the story, looked at Tutu standing at the door again. This time, there was no contempt in his eyes, but a trace of admiration. He did not admire Tutu's strength, but admired the relationship between Tutu and the painter. Thinking about it, Mutuo said to Zumu, "Zumu, I understand. Sometimes, a work of art cannot express anything. On the contrary, the story behind him deserves the fame of this painting and deserves his admiration by the world." After saying that, Mutuo looked at Zumu expectantly. Seeing Mutuo's look, Zumu nodded with relief. Turning his head to look at Sirona, it didn't matter if he looked at her. At this time, Sirona was crying. Although Sirona had also heard this story, no matter how many times she heard it, Sirona would be moved by the story of the painter and the tutu dog. Seeing Sirona crying, Zumu hurriedly hugged Sirona and let Sirona cry on his chest. Mutuo, who was still sighing at the touching story, saw the two people in front of him suddenly hugging each other. Mutuo instantly frowned. "No way, two big brothers and sisters. I just came out to ask a question. Why can you still feed people dog food? If you feed dog food, you should also feed the tutu dog." Thinking of this, Mutuo really felt that he couldn't stay any longer. Mutuo suddenly went back into the Pokeball. "Since I can't resist, I'll run." When Zumu was telling the story just now, the spectators around him also heard the story in its entirety and were all moved by it. Tutu, who was just at the door, heard Zumu's story just now. Tutu's eyes were filled with mixed feelings. The joy was that the painter did not die in vain, and there were still people in this world who understood the painter's heart. The sadness was that the painter died without seeing his finished work. Chapter 455, Zukuten comes online. Thinking of this, Tutu dog trotted directly in front of Zumu and Sirona, sticking out his tongue enthusiastically. Seeing Tutu dog's appearance, Sirona, who had sympathized with him in her heart, felt her heart melted in an instant, and squatted down quickly and hugged Tutu dog. Tutu dog, who was directly picked up, did not resist. In his heart, he thought that no one else could understand him so well except the painter. But since hearing what Zumu and Sirona said, his heart that was not recognized was suddenly melted. Tutu dog, who was picked up, looked at Sirona with gentle eyes, stretched out his tongue, and licked Sirona's hand. Sirona, who had great kindness towards Tutu dog, felt that her heart was filled with the cute appearance of Tutu dog at this time. Looking at Tutu dog in Sirona's arms, Zumu suddenly felt a little uncomfortable at this time. What a guy! Sirona's arms belonged to Zumu, and now it was suddenly occupied by Dog, which made Zumu a little unacceptable. Others may not know what kind of character Zumu has, but we don't know it. He was able to be at odds with Lucario for so long on Sirona's matter. What's more, it was a Dog, and this dog was a male. Thinking in his heart, Zumu quickly took out the Dog from Sirona's arms. He said to Sirona, "Okay, Sirona, if you hold Dog like this, he will feel uncomfortable." After that, he looked at Dog with murderous eyes. Dog, who had just been held in Zumu's arms, was stunned when he heard Zumu's words. Uncomfortable? Why not? Obviously he was enjoying it too. But seeing Zumu's kind eyes, Dog immediately changed his mind. Yes, it was uncomfortable. At this time, Zumu's status in his heart plummeted. It was said that he was someone who understood his heart, but now it is probably not the case. This rude man does not understand his heart at all. He also threatened him to say something he didn't want to say. Thinking of this, Dog once again cast his eyes on Zumu. Seeing his murderous eyes, she immediately agreed with Zumu. When Sirona saw Tutu's look, she thought that her behavior just now really made Tutu feel uncomfortable. Sirona said to Tutu with apology, "Tutu, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it just now." After that, she reached out and touched Tutu's head. Tutu, who was killed by Sirona's head touch, really felt that his heart was about to melt at this time. The woman in front of him was really too gentle. How could such a good woman have such a rude boyfriend? Zumu seemed to see that Tutu had not thought about it well. So, Zumu secretly reached out and pinched Tutu. Tutu, who was suddenly attacked by Zumu, screamed, looking at Zumu with an angry face. If he could speak, he would definitely point at Zumu's nose and scold, "I am not a human, you are a real dog." It's a pity that Dog, a type of elf, can't speak. Otherwise, according to Zumu's personality, Dog would probably go down to accompany the painter to paint. Seeing Dog suddenly shouting, Sirona was startled, thinking that Dog was catering to her. Thinking of this, Sirona retracted her hand and said to Dog with an apologetic look, "Dog, don't be angry with me, okay?" Dog, who had a lot of bitterness in his heart, looked at the two people in grief and anger. "Can't you take a good look? Where did I say you hurt me?" I shouted because of the man next to me. Thinking of this, Dog looked at Zumu again. He compromised instantly. People under the eaves had to bow their heads. Dog, who bowed his head to Zumu, hummed directly. He shouted at Sirona. Zumu saw that Dog was not bad and quite knowledgeable. He couldn't help but look at Dog with appreciation, and the praise in his eyes was about to overflow. When Dog saw Zumu's eyes, he was instantly proud again. "What's going on? He can't do anything to me, right? Big brother, I'm just a dog, please let me go." Thinking of this, a trace of pleading flowed from Dog's eyes. Zumu saw Dog's appearance and chuckled, put Dog on the ground. Dog, who was free, ran away instantly when he just landed on the ground. Zumu only saw Dog running away from him in a flash. That speed was almost as fast as that of the divine beast. This Dog, am I this scary? Fortunately, Dog can't read minds. If he could, he would definitely jump up and bite Zumu's fingers. He kept cursing, "Aren't you scary? I'm a dog. You are jealous of a dog." Of course, Dog definitely didn't know what Zumu was thinking in his heart. Now Dog wanted to run away from Zumu, and Zumu saw Dog running away from him in a flash. He shook his head helplessly. What happened to this world? Why can't we tell good from bad now? Zumu stopped thinking and said to Sirona, "Sirona, let's continue to look. I'll go home and rest later." Hearing Zumu's words, Sirona also thought for a moment. Her main idea of coming to the exhibition was to see the paintings of Dog and the painter. Now that the paintings have been seen, there is no point in continuing here. So, Sirona smiled sweetly at Zumu and said, "Zumu, let's go." Sirona's words made Zumu stunned. What happened? Sirona, who loves to see art exhibitions, actually wants to leave today. As if knowing Zumu's thoughts, Sirona said to Zumu again, "Zumu, I came here mainly to see Dog's paintings. Now I have finished looking at the paintings. Let's go too." Hearing Sirona's words, Zumu put down his doubts. Zumu really didn't want Sirona to give up the idea of continuing to see the exhibition because of what he just said. In that case, what's the point of coming here today? Thinking of this, Zumu took Sirona's hand and said to her, "Okay, since you've finished reading, let's go back." Hearing Zumu's words, Sirona nodded obediently. "Follow Zumu home." "Why do you have to walk home?" Or because Sirona said she wanted to enjoy a slow life with Zumu. Although Zumu, who didn't like walking, felt bitter, he had to listen to what Sirona said. For a lazy person like Zumu, he wanted to teleport even when he went to the toilet. Now let him walk home. Zumu really doesn't want to. There is no way. The world is big, and Sirona is the biggest. Zumu had to walk home with Sirona. Chapter 456. The rich lead the poor. I don't know if Zumu is too lazy or too busy. He has never enjoyed this slow life. Now he suddenly experiences it, and it has a different flavor. Zumu looked at the profile of Sirona, and at this time he couldn't help but recall the various experiences between him and Sirona. He couldn't help but sigh. Thinking of this, Zumu kissed Sirona on the face. Sirona, who was just concentrating on walking, was kissed by Zumu, and her face turned red as if with the naked eye. Seeing Sirona's cute appearance, Zumu felt that Sirona, who was already cute and beautiful, was now even more moving. Sirona said to Zumu shyly, "Zumu, why did you kiss me for no reason? There are so many people around." After saying that, she looked at Zumu with a shy face. Looking at Sirona's cute appearance, Zumu was happy. It's still better to have his own Sirona. It can't be compared. After all, it's on the street. Zumu looked at Sirona's appearance and could only give up his thoughts. Once again, he pulled up Sirona and walked home together. Just when Zumu and Sirona just returned home, Zumu felt exhausted all over. He could only say something to Sirona and went back to the house to rest. This really cannot be said to be Zumu's laziness. After all, Zumu was originally able to sleep, but was pulled up from the chair by his aunt. Wake up from sleep. Every time Zumu thought about this, he felt angry. With his full of resentment, Zumu began to catch up on sleep. Sirona, who saw Zumu go to rest, also felt bored. She had to lie on the bed with Zumu and start to catch up on sleep. Just when the two were resting, a group of elves came out of Zumu's elf ball. Koga Ninja had just finished fighting and was extremely excited at this time. As soon as he came out and saw his group of companions, he felt that the blood in his heart was still not extinguished. The little eyes looked around, thinking about who to let play with today. When his eyes looked at Charizard and Dragonite, Greninja immediately jumped over. Having fought so many games with these two Pokémon, Greninja felt that he could instantly guess what skills the two Pokémon would use. Fighting with them is too boring. It's better to go home and play in the mud. Just after Greninja's eyes skipped Charizard and Dragonite, they stopped directly on the electric cat. At this time, the electric cat's heart was pounding. Something is wrong. Why did this Greninja suddenly look at him? It's not that he doesn't want to fight with Greninja, but he really can't beat him. Thinking of this, the electric cat stood up tremblingly, and said in a trembling voice, "Brother, why are you looking at me?" Hearing what the electric cat said, Greninja showed a meaningful smile. He said to the electric cat, "We haven't fought for so long. Brother will help you see if you have improved in fighting." After that, Greninja directly hugged the electric cat. When the electric cat heard what Greninja said, he wanted to cry but had no tears. Electric cat thought, "I really deserve it. Why do I come out when I have nothing to do? This time, I got myself involved again." Electric cat really felt that he should not join in the fun, because every time he joined in the fun, he got himself involved. Thinking of this, Electric cat secretly said to himself in his heart, "Me, Electric cat, join in the fun again in the future. I am the dog." Thinking in his heart, Electric cat said directly to Greninja, "Brother, please spare me. I let you beat me last time, and now it hurts to walk." Only to see Greninja smiled evilly and said to Electric cat, "Cool, little brother, don't worry. I will definitely be gentle this time." Hearing what Greninja said, Electric cat said hopelessly, "Big brother, I will fight with you. You must be gentle. I'm afraid of pain." Hearing what Electric cat said, Greninja said lightly, "Don't worry, little brother. Big brother is really gentle. After that, he left Electric Cat's shoulder and walked to a corner to start sparring. Charizard and Dragonite saw this scene, and Charizard said to Dragonite, "Fatty, how long do you think this new little brother can get up?" Charizard stared at the fighting Greninja and Dennis. He said calmly, "I don't know how many days he will lie down, but I know he will not come out well." After that, he looked at Charizard who was talking, not to mention the Dennis who was screaming. On the other side of the yard, Lugia was training with Ralts. The original Ralts' combat power was extremely weak. Seeing that Zumu's elves all had extremely high combat power, she always felt unspeakable bitterness in her heart. Just because her combat power was not high, she had not appeared for many chapters. Whenever she thought of this, Ralts was extremely sad. She was used to seeing many elves killing people on the battlefield. Now she just wanted to improve her combat power as soon as possible so that she could go to the battlefield to serve Zumu. She didn't want to be a dispensable vase anymore. Now she wanted to fight for Zumu. Lugia said to Lailas seriously, "The road to growth is extremely difficult. You may have trained hard for several months, but your combat effectiveness has only improved a little. Can you endure this kind of hardship where the effort is not proportional to the reward?" Seeing Lugia's serious look, Lailas said with determination in his eyes, "Master, I am willing to train hard and improve my combat effectiveness." Hearing Lailas' words, Lugia nodded with relief. He said to her again, "I will now teach you how to use your telekinesis correctly. This process will be extremely difficult. You have to hold on." After saying that, Lugia flapped his wings and entered the house. A moment later, he came back with a bottle full of water. Lugia threw the bottle to Lailas and said to her, "Now there is only one thing you have to do. You make the water in this bottle rotate slowly. Of course, this process cannot rely on other methods, only your mental power." Hearing Lugia's words, Lailas showed a look of astonishment. "Master, you are making it too difficult for the elves, aren't you? I know I am a spirit that relies on telekinesis, but shouldn't you first teach me how to improve my mental power?" Thinking of this, Lailas said to Lugia, "Master, but my mental power is almost the same as it is now. Shouldn't I improve my mental power first?" Lailas' words made Lugia smile. He said to Lailas, "You are also training your mental power now. You should know that as a special elf, your upper limit is very high." Chapter 457, The Newbie's Path. The upper limit is high. Is this how I should be treated because of the high upper limit? Lailas thought with tears in his eyes. But there is no way. If you want to improve your strength, you have to pay the same price. Now Lailas has a heart to become a strong person. She is not afraid of hardship, but she is afraid that she can't become a strong person. This is unbearable for her. Thinking of this, Lailas said directly to Lugia, "Master, please train me as much as you can. I will definitely train hard." After saying that, Lailas looked at Lugia with a firm face. Seeing Lailas's firm look, Lugia smiled with relief and said to Lailas, "Just follow the method I taught you and train well." At this time, Lailas looked at Lugia with a questioning face, and said to Lugia, "Master, how should I use this bottle you gave me?" Seeing Lailas's cute look, Lugia chuckled. He said to his little apprentice, "You see the water in this bottle, right? Your task is to rely on your telekinesis to make the water in this bottle slowly rotate. I know your strength. This bottle of water is enough for you to slowly exercise your telekinesis. Only when your telekinesis grows up can you control your own combat power." After saying that, Lugia looked at Lailas seriously. Lailas, who was taught by Lugia, felt Lugia's gaze. He also nodded seriously. This feeling of having strength but not being able to control himself was too painful. Thinking of this, Lailas began to exercise on his own. Lailas focused his attention, looked at the water and the bottle in front of him, and kept saying in his heart, "Move, move." At this time, there was a bang. The bottle that was intact just now suddenly exploded. The water and the bottle instantly burst into a mist in the air. Seeing that he failed, Lailas showed a frustrated expression. He lowered his head and stopped talking. Lugia saw Lailas's appearance and chuckled. Then he said to Lailas gently, "Failure is the mother of success. I'm telling you, didn't you just fail once? Don't be discouraged. Don't be depressed." Hearing Lugia's words, Lailas slowly raised his head. With tears in his eyes, he asked Lugia, "Master, can I really succeed?" Hearing Layla's words, Lugia said to her gently, "Why can't you? You are very strong, you have to admit this yourself. What you lack is just combat experience and combat awareness. Of course, the most important thing is that you can't control your own strength. Once you can control your own strength, your strength will definitely be greatly improved." Hearing Lugia's words, Layla's eyes were once again full of determination. I only heard Layla say to Lugia seriously, "Master, you must not be soft when training me. I want to grow well." Lugia nodded and threw a bottle at Layla's again. Layla's caught the bottle and began to train himself. As a result, there was a constant sound of collision between Lugia and Layla's. The noise from their side attracted the attention of the others. I only heard that Greninja stopped beating the electric cat, looked at Troltz's behavior seriously, and said to the electric cat, "Cool, young man, you see that Ralts over there, right?" With her serious attitude, "There will definitely be a powerful Pokémon next to our master in the future. The only flaw is that this Pokémon was trained by Lugia's mount. I have decided that I will train you well in the future. I will never let them leave you behind." After saying that, Greninja looked at the electric cat seriously. The electric cat, who was bruised and swollen by Greninja, was stunned. "What, big brother, what are you going to do? How gentle is the way other people train Pokémon. Look at you, what have you been beaten into?" Thinking of this, the electric cat couldn't help but look at Greninja with some confusion. But now Greninja's mind is full of how to help the electric cat grow. Clearing his mind, Greninja tried to make a kind smile and looked at the electric cat. The electric cat on the side saw the smile of Greninja that was uglier than crying. The electric cat felt like he wanted to die. But when he saw Greninja's clenched fist, the electric cat knew if he didn't agree, Greninja's fist would probably fall on him in the next second. The electric cat had no choice but to cry, nodded, and said to Greninja, "Brother, okay, I will train well in the future. I won't embarrass you." Seeing that the electric cat was so accommodating, Greninja smiled with relief. He loosened his clenched fist and patted the electric cat's shoulder. He put his arm around his shoulder. He said to him, "Young man, let's go. Big brother will take you to training." After a while, the miserable wail of the electric cat came from the corner again. Charizard and Dragonite on the other side heard the scream of the electric cat and shook their heads in unison. They looked at the corner with pity. Then, the two looked at each other again. They could actually see the sympathy and pity in each other's eyes. Poor electric cat, since it fell into Zumu's hands, nothing good has happened to it, but it has been beaten up a lot every day. At this time, Lugia looked at Layla's calmly in front of him. This little girl, it can really be said that she really has a heart to become a strong person. It can be seen from the sound of bumping. Not everyone can endure the hardships on the road of growth. Anyone who can endure loneliness, as long as he has a little talent, then he can succeed. The difference is that Layla in front of her has extremely high talent. As long as her combat awareness is improved, it can be said that she will definitely have a place among the high-end elves in this world. These are facts that have to be said. At this time, Layla is still using her mental power to study how to turn the water in the bottle. Others saw the bottles in Layla's hands explode one after another. It feels very simple. However, every family has its own problems. Layla herself knows that the feeling of powerlessness is unusually strong. She clearly feels that she didn't use that much force, but the water in the bottle clearly told her, if she had even a slight thought now, the bottle would explode. After practicing to this point, Layla really felt that he was about to die. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 458, Hardships and Sweet Endings Must Come. Thinking of this, Layla looked at Lugia pitifully. When Lugia saw Layla's expression, he smiled knowingly and said to Layla, the mental power you just used was too large. Now try to reduce your mental power. Hearing Lugia's words, Layla nodded in confusion and said to Lugia, okay, master. After that, He continued to lower his head and began to use mental power on the water bottle. Originally, Layla's thought that her ability had been used small enough, but now it seems that the ability just used is not that small. It's just that Layla's is not particularly good at using her own telekinesis, and there is always a hurdle in her heart. She thinks that she can't do what Lugia said. Lugia on the side also knows Layla's ability. It is precisely because she can't accurately control her mental power that the water bottle explodes frequently. Layla's, who has just received Lugia's instructions, now looks at the bottle in front of her with a calm face. In her mind, Layla's imagined her mental power as strands of hair. What made her feel helpless was that she had no way to control the mental power that formed the hair. Layla's focused more and forced out a strand of mental power. She began to direct it towards the bottle in front of her. As a result, in Layla's shocked eyes, the water and the bottle slowly spun, slowly forming a vortex. Layla's was very excited at this time. Just when she was excited, the bottle suddenly exploded again. But this time Layla's was not depressed. She seemed very excited this time. Originally, she was just trying it this time to see if this method would work. The result was enough to make her happy. She successfully spun the water in the bottle in front of her. Thinking of this, Layla's looked at Lugia with excitement and said excitedly, "Master, I found the trick." After that, she smiled happily. Seeing Layla's current appearance, Lugia was happy for Layla's from the bottom of her heart. But Lugia couldn't let Layla's be proud. Thinking of this, Lugia said to Layla's seriously, "Layla's, I'm glad you can make it this far, but you can't be happy. You've only taken the first step now. There's still a lot you haven't done yet." Hearing Lugia's serious words, Layla's originally happy expression suddenly became depressed. Seeing Layla's appearance, Lugia also felt that what he had just said was indeed a bit serious. So, Lugia's eyes became gentle, and his tone was no longer serious. He said to Layla's, don't be discouraged. Being able to take the first step so quickly is enough to tell us that you are indeed very talented. As long as you keep persisting, your future achievements will not be low. Then, Charizard, who had been watching the excitement on the side, said, "Roar, Lugia, you are too strict with Layla's. How many elves in the world can control their mental power in such a short time?" After that, Charizard looked at Layla's with a smile and said, "Layla's, you don't have to listen to Lugia's words. What he just said was a bit too harsh. Now you just need to keep this feeling, then you will definitely succeed." Lugia looked at Charizard with a helpless look. He kept complaining, "This Charizard, can't you see that he is teaching his apprentice here? He is everywhere and wants to get involved in everything." Now that he has just shaped Layla's mentality, Charizard is here to get involved. Do you know what it means to teach and educate people? Thinking of this, Lugia became more and more angry, and said directly to Charizard, "Old Charizard, do you still have time to chat with us here? Can't you see what I'm doing? Come on, since you feel bored, let's exercise." After that, he landed directly on the ground and patted Charizard's shoulder with his wings. Lugia's words made Charizard stunned. What's going on? Charizard just felt a little bored. Seeing Layla's training here, he wanted to come and give some guidance. How did this apply to him? Looking at the malicious smile of Lugia in front of him, Charizard felt a chill all over his body. He deserved it. Wasn't it better to just watch from the side? Now he got himself involved. Fight? It's impossible to even fight. It's not good if this thing crushes the flowers and plants around. Besides, if he fights, he will definitely get hurt. This injury will easily leave hidden injuries. He is young and strong now and nothing will happen to him. What about when he gets old? Wouldn't all kinds of problems be found on him? Thinking of this, Charizard shook his head quickly. He said to Lugia firmly, "Roar, it's impossible to fight. I can't fight in this life." Hearing Charizard's words, Lugia smiled evilly and said to Charizard, "You have no say in this." After that, Lugia turned to Ralts and said, "Good disciple, watch how your master fights." Ralts hadn't figured out what was going on the field yet, and only saw Lugia soaring into the air. Lugia in the air suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and gradually, the white light on Lugia's body turned black. This black light was seen by Ralts. Ralts only felt that Lugia's breath suddenly became abnormally evil. Ralts, who had never seen Lugia in this form, felt an unexpected shock. Unlike Ralt's shock, Charizard saw Lugia's changing form. He was anxious in an instant, and he shouted at Lugia loudly, "Roar! Fuck you, Lugia. Are you serious with me? You're still changing your form to fight me." When Lugia heard what Charizard said, he laughed and said, "Old Charizard, didn't I just say that it's not up to you whether to fight or not?" As soon as the voice fell, Lugia, after changing his form, dived directly towards Charizard, and several rays of light shot out from his side. Charizard didn't expect that Lugia actually wanted to fight, and he came up to prepare for a big move. Seeing this, Charizard directly relied on his superb combat awareness to dodge Lugia's rays, flying towards the open space behind. Lugia only saw as several water waves directly hit the afterimage of Charizard. He couldn't help but smile, and thought to himself, "This Charizard is really interesting. He hasn't had a serious battle for such a long time, but his combat awareness is still so strong. He always says that he won't fight, but he is still training secretly." Chapter 459, Battle Practice. While Lugia was praising Charizard in his heart, Charizard was cursing Lugia in his mind. How could Charizard, who was also a smart person, not know this? Lugia wanted to fight just to let Lalula's take a closer look at how to fight. Looking at Lalula standing aside, Charizard thought in his heart, "Forget it. An excellent elf like me loves to be brave and righteous. Now, there is such a confused child who is eager to learn. As a kind elf, how can I not help her?" Thinking of this, Charizard shouted directly at Lugia, "Oh, Lugia, you are bullying the elves too much." After saying that, he rushed directly towards Lugia. In the eyes of Lalula's on the side, Charizard suddenly emitted a scorching light. Charizard's face turned red, and a stream of destructive hot flames shot out of his mouth. It hit Lugia directly. When Lugia saw the hot flames of Charizard, his heart tightened. He knew in his heart that Charizard was not noticeable among the crowd. That was because Charizard did not want to be in the limelight at all. It just wanted to hide itself. It delivered the final blow when the enemy was sick. Regarding Charizard's character, not to mention Lugia, even Zumu had no way to deal with it. So Charizard's strength should not be underestimated. Just as Lugia dodged to the side, countless air masses appeared around him, and slowly evolved into an air sword around Lugia. At this time, Lugia shouted to Lars, who was watching the excitement below, "Disciple, look, how does the master control his attack?" After speaking, Lugia waved his wings, and countless air swords flew towards Charizard. The sound of the air swords in the air made everyone feel sour. When Charizard saw that Lugia actually took out this move, he kept cursing in his heart. "This Lugia, what a dog. It was said that it was just a practice, but you are just going to attack indiscriminately." Although he thought so in his heart, Charizard still knew it. No matter what, he must not let Lugia's attack touch him. Lugia's skills in this evil mode are very strange. No matter what skills are used in this mode, they will carry corrosive energy. Thinking of this, Charizard quickly began to dodge. So, in the eyes of Lalula's, Lugia's attacks kept hitting the ground, smashing pits on the ground and raising a cloud of dust. At this time, Dragonite saw the fierce battle between the two, and a trace of pity flowed from his eyes. These two people are fighting happily now. How should they tell Zumu when he wakes up? Many flowers and plants in this yard were damaged. Not to mention Zumu. I am afraid that Sirona will not let them go at that time. I don't know what Dragonite is thinking. Charizard and Lugia are still fighting firmly. When Lugia still has the last sword beside him, Lugia shouts to Lars, "Disciple, watch carefully." After that, Lugia closes his eyes in the air. When Charizard saw this scene, he really wanted to cry. No, it's not a training. Why is he so serious? If you say that there is no priority in the battle, who will feel sorry if he gets some hidden injuries on his body? Although thinking so in his heart, Charizard's mobile phone is not idle, and one skill after another hits Lugia directly. At this time, Lugia opened his eyes, and in an instant, a stream of air spread out to the surroundings with Lugia as the center. Seeing this scene, Charizard really opened the big Lugia in front of him, only to see Charizard put a shield on himself with a bitter face. Then he increased his attention and stared at the only remaining air sword of Lugia motionlessly. Charizard knew in his heart that the power of this remaining air sword in front of him should not be underestimated after it was launched. Lugia on the side said to Ralts standing on the ground, "Ralts, watch out, the master is going to use his mental power." After saying that, he controlled the air sword beside him and flew towards Charizard. Seeing this air sword, Charizard's face became solemn. He looked at Lugia seriously. The air sword made a sound of breaking through the air, and it was impossible to capture the flight trajectory of the air sword with the naked eye. If it were an ordinary elf, it would definitely not be able to dodge it. But Charizard is different. In Zumu's hands, Charizard is an old and powerful one. For other elves, this air sword may be a sure hit. But for Charizard, this air sword can still be avoided. So, in the shocked eyes of Lailas, Charizard locked the air sword with his eyes. When the air sword was about to reach him, Charizard dodged this air sword in an instant, but this air sword had already been attached with a trace of mental power by Lugia. In Lailas's eyes, the air sword turned a corner and continued to fly towards Charizard. Seeing this, Charizard knew that Lugia's attack could not be avoided with his body. Then, a flame spurted out of his mouth again. This flame was different from the previous one. Maybe other elves couldn't see it, but in the eyes of a group of veteran elves, they could tell it apart directly. This flame was the real fire of the sun with an extremely high temperature. This flame collided directly with the Chi sword. A powerful fluctuation of power erupted in the whole yard. There was a white light in front of all the elves. Wait until the white light and smoke passed. The flowers and plants in the yard suddenly became empty. The elves were shocked. This was a bad thing. Zumu was still sleeping. When he woke up, there would probably be another bloody storm. Seeing this scene in front of him, Charizard suddenly said to Lugia, "Oh, Lugia, that's enough. If we keep fighting, we'll tear down the house." Lugia nodded helplessly when he heard Charizard's words. Ralts, who had been watching the battle for a long time, saw this scene and nodded thoughtfully. He closed his eyes again and put his mental power into the water bottle in his hand. When a trace of mental power was put into the water in the bottle, Ralts suddenly felt that this trace of mental power became a little heavy. The water and the bottle spun in Ralts's delighted eyes. Seeing this scene, Ralts shouted to Lugia with excitement, "Master, I succeeded." Chapter 460, Gorgeous Competition. Hearing what Laila said, Lugia showed a gratified smile on his face. The apprentice he accepted was really good. With such a high level of comprehension, his future achievements would definitely not be low. Thinking of this, Lugia looked around proudly. It didn't matter what he saw. He saw that the flowers, plants and trees that should have existed in the whole yard had disappeared. Seeing this, Lugia, who was still full of pride just now, panicked instantly. If Zumu saw the yard like this, I'm afraid he would be in danger. Thinking of this, Lugia hurriedly said to Lailas, "Lailas, you did a good job. Let's practice here first this time, and we'll talk about it when we have time." After saying that, Lugia was about to run back to the Pokeball. Just as Lugia was about to take action, a cold voice came from behind Lugia. "Lugia, where are you going?" Hearing this voice, Lugia's forehead was instantly covered with cold sweat. The person who spoke was not someone else, but our male protagonist Zumu. The explosion just now woke Zumu from his sleep. Zumu, who had just woken up, thought that it was an enemy who came to the door. Just now, he was still thinking, who is the one who came to seek death? He was stunned when he got up. Good guy. There is nothing left of the flowers and plants in the yard. The yard that used to be like a garden is now a wasteland. Zumu, who had just woken up, thought that someone had moved his house and people away. Looking closely, this was Lugia's work. Thinking of this, Zumu said that sentence to Lugia. Hearing Zumu's words, Lugia showed a smile that was uglier than crying, and said to Zumu with a trembling voice, "Zumu, do you believe me when I say it's not me?" After that, he looked at Zumu expectantly. Zumu gradually showed a cold smile in his eyes. He said to Lugia, "How can I not believe you?" Then he said, "It seems that the person who destroyed the yard must be very energetic. This elf must not be Lugia." "Lugia, don't fight all the time in the future. Just be a mount quietly." As soon as the voice fell, Lugia just stayed where he was. What did I hear? Don't let me fight." "Zumu, then you might as well kill me." The Charizard on the side saw this scene and laughed out loud. This is what you deserve. So what, aren't you awesome, Lugia? Now it's alright, right? There must be consequences for all causes, and your retribution has come. Zumu saw Charizard smile and laughed out loud. Great. There is still one thing I don't understand here. Thinking about it, he said to Charizard, Charizard, it seems that you are very energetic, so you can go to the battle next time. After that, Zumu walked back into the house without looking back. But Charizard just stood there in a daze. It's not right. This script is not right. Zumu is really mean. He doesn't allow the person he likes to fight, but he forces the person who doesn't want to fight. Is he still alive? Thinking of this, Charizard looked at Lugia with a sad face. He said weakly, "Oh, Lugia, this is the result you want." After that, he chased Zumu directly back to the Pokeball. Now he has to calm down his mood, otherwise, he might really get depressed. And Lugia didn't hear what Charizard said at all. He is already depressed now. At this time, Lailas ran over from the side and said to Lugia, "Master, are you okay?" Hearing Laila's words, Lugia patted Laila's head. He said sadly, "Lailas, Master has no more battles to fight in the future, and the future depends on you." After that, he followed Zumu into the house. Zumu, who had just walked to the door of the bedroom, was excited to hear his mobile phone ringing. Zumu took out his mobile phone and answered the call. A crisp voice came from the other side of the phone. "Brother Zumu, I heard that the first gorgeous contest is about to start. Can you take me and Masashi to participate together?" Hearing this voice, Zumu was stunned for a moment. What did Zioxia say? Their world is going to hold a gorgeous contest. Thinking of this, Zumu didn't care about anything and said to Zioxia, "Okay, I'll ask when it starts now, and what other requirements are there?" Hearing Zumu directly agree to her request, Zioxia on the other side of the phone shouted happily. She shouted loudly to Masashi, "Auntie, Zumu promised us." After that, another shout came from the phone, "Zioxia, don't call me old auntie." After that, the phone was hung up. Hearing the busy tone from Zumu's phone, Zumu smiled helplessly. Then he began to think about the gorgeous contest again. In the plot world, the gorgeous contest is a contest that depends on whether the elves' fighting skills are gorgeous. In the plot world, it is a very popular contest. I don't know why. Their world is also going to hold a gorgeous contest. Zumu, full of doubts, picked up the phone again and called his aunt. This aunt was none other than Zumu's little aunt Zukinking. A ringtone came, followed by a lively voice from the other side of the phone. "Zumu, what's the matter? You finally remembered that you have an aunt like me." Hearing Zukinking's words, Zumu showed a bitter smile. These aunts always start with one sentence, "Why did you think of me?" It always makes Zumu feel embarrassed. Thinking of this, Zumu said to Zukinking, "How is it possible? Aunt, I have always had you in my heart." Hearing Zumu's words, Zukinking smiled and said, "Okay, Aunt knows. What's the matter? Is there anything?" Zumu heard that and turned to the main topic and said to Zukinking, "Aunt, I heard that our world is going to launch a gorgeous competition." Zukinking heard Zumu's words and said with a smile, "How did you know? This news has not been spread to the outside world. Our gorgeous competition is based on that world. Those contestants must get 5 medals before they can participate." "Why, you want to participate? Then the champion of this gorgeous competition will be decided internally." Zukinking's words made Zumu smile. How could a person of his level still be attracted by this small gorgeous competition? That's simply impossible. Thinking of this, Zumu said to Zukinking, "Aunt, do you have any documents or something to send me? It's not that I want to participate, but I have a few children who want to participate." Zukinking heard Zumu's words and said to Zumu jokingly. Chapter 461 It has to be Zioxia. Zumu is the one who can do it. "Wait, I'll send you the file now." After saying that, Zukinking hung up the phone directly. Zumu listened to the busy tone coming from the phone, feeling helpless. His aunts are worthy of being a father. This guy never hesitates to hang up on people. Thinking of this, Zumu's phone rang. Zumu clicked on the file and scanned it calmly. In a moment, Zumu finished reading the files on his phone. He thought to himself, this gorgeous competition is similar to the plot world, and they are all based on the same standard. The qualification to participate in the competition is to get 5 medals, that is to challenge 5 training halls in a row. This is nothing for Zoomu, but it is not a simple matter for ordinary people. Coincidentally, the final battle of this gorgeous competition is also held in the Magic City. This location is in line with Zoomu's idea. He didn't want to move at first, so he saved trouble this time. Thinking of this, Zoomu took out his phone again and called Zioxia, and the call was answered immediately. Zoomu smiled. It seems that Zioxia and Masashi are really eager to participate in this gorgeous competition. Then Zoomu will be a good person to the end and help Zioxia to participate. Thinking of this, Zoomu said to Zioxia, "Zioxia, when are you and Masashi going to drive to the Magic City?" Zioxia on the other side of the phone was already eager to participate in the gorgeous competition. Now hearing Zoomu's words, she shouted excitedly, "Zoomu, just now, I just finished talking to Uncle Kyle. We will go to your house in a while." At this time, Shirona, who had just got up, heard that Zioxia and Masashi were also coming back, and she was instantly excited. She took Zoomu's phone away and said excitedly to Zioxia, "Zioxia, when are you going to come back? I will cook for you." Zioxia, who was still very excited on the other side of the phone, heard Shirona's words, and she was silent for a moment. Now Zioxia and Masashi are trembling in the house in the West Continent. It's a bad dish. How did Sister Shirona hear this? This time Sister Shirona will cook for them. If the food made by Sister Shirona is edible, they will not say anything. But the food that Shirona cooked was not for human consumption. Even if it was edible, it would come at a huge price. Thinking of this, Zioxia and Masashi looked at each other. They saw deep fear in each other's eyes. Sister Shirona was really terrible. They had never eaten that dark dish in their memories. Not to mention Masashi, Zioxia was a rich girl in her own world and had never tasted such terrible food. Masashi asked herself, although she had a bad childhood and lived a miserable life every bite, but the food that Shirona cooked made Masashi feel that it was even more unpalatable than the snow she ate when she was a child. Thinking of this, Masashi made a lip gesture to Zioxia. Tell Zioxia if she can return it. It's not that they don't want to eat it, but they really can't eat it. Seeing Masashi's lip shape, Zioxia immediately understood what Masashi meant. Zioxia said to the phone, "Sister Shirona, no need. We may be back late, you eat first." After saying that, Zioxia breathed a sigh of relief. If she said that, Sister Shirona would definitely not cook again. However, when Shirona heard that Zioxia and the others would be back very late, her heart tightened immediately. How could this be possible? Zioxia was so young, and she didn't eat anything at night. Thinking of this, Shirona said to the phone, "It's okay, Zioxia. I will wait for you no matter how late you come back." Then, Shirona hung up the phone directly and said to Zoomu, "Zoomu, you don't need to cook today. I want to welcome Zioxia." Zoomu on the side was still stunned at this time. Hearing that Shirona was going to cook, Zoomu was also panicked. At this time, an idea came to Zoomu's mind. Zoomu said to Shirona gently, "You said Zioxia is young and can't skip meals. Then what about you? You can't eat so late either. How about this? I'll cook first, and we'll eat first. When Zioxia and the others come later, how about you cook for them?" Hearing Zoomu's words, Shirona thought about it for a moment, and felt that what Zoomu said made sense. She couldn't wait until then. If she waited until then, she would probably be too hungry to cook. How could this be possible? Thinking of this, Shirona said to Zoomu, "Okay, Zoomu, go cook first, and we'll eat first." Shirona's words made Zoomu feel relieved. It seems that this disaster has been overcome. Zoomu is not unwilling to eat Shirona's food. As long as Shirona's food can make people eat a little bit, Zoomu will not say anything. But the food made by Shirona can't be distinguished at all. Thinking of this, Zoomu nodded to Shirona, turned and walked into the kitchen, and began to prepare dinner. Zoomu survived the disaster safely, but it was different for Zioxia and Masashi in the Western Continent. The two were staring at each other blankly. They saw deep sadness in each other's eyes. Shirona still had to cook, which made the two suddenly feel that they didn't have to participate in the gorgeous competition. After all, compared to participating in the gorgeous competition, Their lives were the most important. Thinking of this, the two hugged and cried. Sirona's food has the ultimate charm, which made the two people who were originally enemies hug each other now. If Sirona knew, she would definitely feel very happy, and she would say to the two happily, "Look, this is the charm of food." At this time, Zumyu, who had just walked into the kitchen, suddenly heard Sirona shout loudly, and he immediately put down what he was holding. He ran directly outside the house, only to see Sirona staring blankly at the mess in the yard. Nothing was said, and seeing Sirona like this, Zumyu slapped his forehead. Or forget about it. The flowers and plants in the yard are all Shirona's favorites, but now they are ruined by those two idiots, Lugia and Charizard. Don't mention how upset she must be. If Charizard in the Pokeball knew what Zumyu was thinking, he would definitely cry and complain to Zumyu, "I really didn't want to do this, but that idiot Lugia wanted to do it. He insisted on dragging me to fight. I said no." No, he was not happy, and he just started fighting with me. Of course, Zumyu didn't know what Charizard was thinking, and now he thought that this was the only way to make Shirona happy. This is a century-old problem, except for Zumyu. Ordinary people can't be coaxed. Chapter 462, Lugia passes the buck. At this time, Zumyu's headache was getting worse, and Shirona, who was still staring blankly at the front, finally reacted and looked at Zumyu with anger. With a murderous tone, she said to Zumyu, "Zumyu, where are my flowers?" Shirona's words were unusually calm, as if she was not angry at all, but Zumyu knew that Shirona in front of him was really angry. Thinking of this, Zumyu threw Lugia out of the Pokeball at once. He said to Shirona, "Shirona, I found the murderer who damaged the flowers and plants for you. It's this guy." As he said, Zumyu pointed at Lugia. Lugia, who was still depressed in the Pokeball, saw this scene in front of him. The strong desire to survive made him react, and he saw Lugia fell to the ground at once. He cried to Zumyu, "Zumyu, you can't do this. You clearly said that as long as I get rid of these flowers and plants and let you plant some vegetables, you will let me fight in the future. Why are you killing the donkey now?" When Zumyu heard Lugia's words, he shouted, "Good guy! Who did Lugia learn this from? Who else could he learn it from? Marry a chicken, follow the chicken. Marry a dog, follow the dog. How shameless!" He bit back at her, and Zumyu was not prepared. But who is Zumyu? If it comes to doing bad things, Zumyu is the best. Zumyu said to Sirona, "Sirona, listen to me. How could I do such a bad thing? It's the young Lugia in front of you. He is strong and healthy and does these things. Besides, I have always liked the flowers and plants you raise." When Sirona heard what Zumyu said, she understood in her heart. How could she not know what kind of elf Lugia is? Sirona looked at Zumyu calmly, and Zumyu immediately felt cold sweat on his body. He quickly said to Sirona, "Sirona, I will go to cook for you first, and you can punish Lugia slowly." After saying that, he ran away without looking back, without even looking at Lugia's current appearance. Sirona ignored Zumyu and cast her eyes on Lugia. Lugia saw Sirona looking at him like this. He knew that what he said just now had no effect. Instead, he offended Zumyu, which made his already poor family even worse. Thinking of this, Lugia simply didn't argue and went straight to the ground. He stared at the sky blankly. Zumyu, who had just walked into the kitchen, only heard Lugia's screams from outside. He couldn't help but shudder. If Zumyu faced the enemy, Zumyu would definitely let the enemy feel what winter is coming. But it's hard to say when facing Sirona. According to Zumyu's love for his wife, he was reluctant to blush with Sirona, let alone winter is coming. So, in order to dispel Sirona's anger, Zumyu began to cook seriously. After all, now, the most important thing is to let Sirona calm down. Although Lugia outside is now being punished, it is impossible to say that Sirona will not continue to be angry. Those flowers and plants were a waste of Shirona's thoughts. They were even specially airlifted from the western continent. This shows how much Shirona loves those flowers and plants. The flowers and plants that Shirona carefully took care of every day disappeared all of a sudden. You can imagine how angry Shirona is now. So in order to make Shirona feel relieved, Zumyu's meal can be said to be all he has learned in his life. After a while, Zumyu heard that Lugia was no longer screaming outside, and his heart was full of questions again. What happened? Could it be that Lugia was beaten to death by Sharona? This is impossible. According to Lugia's thick skin and flesh, nothing will happen even if he is beaten. Thinking of this, Zumu decided to go out and take a look. Just as he was about to walk out of the house, he ran into Sharona head-on. Seeing Zumu's appearance, Sharona said lightly, "Don't worry about that, Lugia. I'll ask him to find all the flowers and plants I don't have and plant them for me." After that, Sharona walked directly to the refrigerator, took out the ice cream from it and started eating. Now she is still angry, and only ice cream can quench her anger. Hearing what Sharona said, Zumu laughed awkwardly. He walked back to the kitchen awkwardly and started cooking. On this day, people all over the world can see a huge Lugia flying in the sky with flowers in its mouth. They all think that this Lugia is looking for a mate, but Lugia, who has a lot of suffering in his heart, knows it himself. He is not looking for a mate, but just atonement. Thinking of this, Lugia felt even more wronged. When passing by several secret realms, he beat up the strongest in several secret realms. After beating up the last secret realm, Lugia felt much better. Started to work. At this time, Zumu, who had just brought the food to the table, saw Sharona eating ice cream on the side, and said with a smile, "Sharona, don't be angry. Come, eat. Zioxia and the others will be back soon. If you don't eat enough, how can you have the energy to cook for them?" It's just that Zioxia didn't know about this. If she knew, she would not care who Zumu was and would cry to him. Zumu had no choice. After all, the old saying goes, "It's better to die than to die." Seeing that Sharona was still angry, Zumu smiled. He said to Sharona, "Okay, don't be angry. Come back for dinner." At this time, Lugia came in from outside covered in dust. He said to Sharona with a flattering face, "Sharona, I have completed the task you gave me. Can I go back now?" After saying that, Lugia looked at Sharona expectantly. Hearing Lugia's words, Sharona didn't say anything, but got up and walked out of the house. Only Lugia and Zumu were left in the house. Zumu looked at Lugia with a cruel face and said to him, "Not bad, Lugia. Now you know how to pass the buck." Hearing Zumu's words, Lugia reacted instantly. Damn, forgot Zumu. Just now he forced the buck to pass it to Zumu. Thinking about it now, he was really stupid at that time. He actually forgot that this matter was very simple. It is better to offend Sharona than to offend Zumu. This principle is so simple, but in that situation just now, Lugia suddenly forgot about this matter. Now, there is nothing wrong with Sharona, but Zumu is just beginning. Thinking of this, Lugia smiled at Zumu with bitterness, and then continued, "Zumu, I was not the one who spoke just now. Do you believe me?" Zumu did not speak, but just looked at Lugia with a smile. Chapter 463 Let's Eat. When Lugia saw Zumu's smile, his heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, he knew that this little trick could not fool Zumu at all. Thinking of this, Lugia simply let it go, looked at Zumu with a heroic face and said, "Zumu, I've let it go. Just tell me, whether it's life or death. Give me a definite answer." Hearing Lugia's words, Zumu was happy. What a guy. "You've let it go. Am I the kind of person who doesn't value affection?" Thinking of this, Zumu said directly to Lugia, "Lugia, don't worry, you know what kind of person I am." Zumu, "Am I the kind of person who is petty?" Zumu's words made Lugia sneer. "Are you, Zumu, a petty person?" "Do you still need to ask? If you are not petty, who else is petty?" Of course, these words can only be thought of in his heart, and Lugia dare not say them out loud. He was afraid that after he said it, Zumu would be petty even if he was not petty. After clearing his mind, Lugia looked at Zumu with a charming smile and said, "No, our brother Zumu is certainly not that kind of petty person." At this moment, Sharona, who had just finished checking the flowers and plants, walked in from outside the house. Seeing Lugia with a face full of fearlessness, Sharona's heart was full of questions. What's going on? Didn't they say that as long as she brought her flowers and plants, she would let Lugia go? Why is Lugia still looking fearless? What's going on? In Lugia's heart, I, Sharona, am such a petty person. Now Lugia has no idea what Sharona is thinking. If he knew, he would definitely lie on the ground and shout that he was wronged. Lugia didn't have this idea at all. Now Lugia was just thinking about how to eliminate Zumu's anger. Now Zumu's anger has not been eliminated at all, but he has also aroused Sirona's anger. How can Lugia live? At this time, Sirona's pretty face became cold and frosty, and she said to Lugia, "Lugia, what do you mean? I told you that as long as you bring my flowers and plants back to me, I will let you go. What about now? Who are you showing this face to?" Hearing this, Lugia felt that he might as well die. This Sirona didn't learn anything good from Zumu, but instead did all the improper things. Hearing Sirona's words, Lugia said to Sirona, "Sirona, don't think too much, I'm trying to please Zumu now." Lugia's words made Sirona, who was already in a bad mood, even more angry. "Great, you gave me my flowers and plants to destroy me, and now you come to please Zumu. What's the matter? Can Zumu represent my meaning? You don't take me, Sirona, seriously." Thinking of this, Sirona shouted at Lugia, "Lugia, you are useless, no one can protect you." Hearing Sirona's words, Lugia sat down on the ground. That's it. There is no need to say anything. Now Lugia feels that he is just short of announcing the death penalty. Why is this Sirona so stubborn? Why doesn't she listen to anything? But he has no way to confront Sirona. He knows that as long as he confronts Sirona, not to mention how Sirona will deal with him, even Zumu, who is standing aside now, will teach him a lesson. Thinking of this, Lugia lowered his head directly, and suddenly felt that the world was full of malice towards him. Seeing Lugia's appearance, Zumu just felt funny in his heart. This Lugia is really interesting. Why didn't I find it before? This time, let you do it. Now you are doing it. Now it depends on your great trainer to get you out of the sea of suffering. Thinking of this, Zumu looked at Sirona with a smile and said to her, "Sirona, don't be angry. Lugia came to me to ask me what gift you like, so that you can completely dissipate the anger in your heart." After saying that, Zumu waved his hand and took Lugia back to his Pokeball. After hearing Zumu's words, Sirona felt that the anger in her heart dissipated a lot. She nodded to Zumu and said, "Okay, I'll forgive him this time." After saying that, seeing the food on the table, she also felt a sense of emptiness in her stomach. She was angry just now and didn't feel hungry. Now it's different. Lugia has restored her mysterious garden to its original state, and now her anger has dissipated a lot. Only then can she feel hungry. Zumu originally wanted to make Sirona calm down, so Zumu was very serious when cooking today, and Zumu's cooking skills were really good. This made Sirona's feeling of hunger even more intense. Thinking of this, Sirona sat directly on the chair and started eating. It must be said that Sirona is used to eating Zumu's food. Now she can't eat anything else. Seeing Sirona start to eat, Zumu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Even though Zumu can be said to be a person standing at the top of this world, facing the angry Sirona, then Zumu will directly retreat. Whoever loves his wife, how can a good man like Zumu not love his wife? Looking at Sirona eating with big mouthfuls, Zumu wiped the non-existent sweat on his forehead. He said to Sirona, "Sirona, eat more, so that you can have the energy to cook for Zioxia and Masashi later." After saying that, Zumu felt that he was very smart. If I don't say this to Sirona, I'm afraid Sirona will have to cook by herself. Then the people who die are not just Zioxia and Masashi. I'm afraid that his own life will be in danger at that time. You see how good it is now, which can not only save Zumu from the suffering at that time, but also satisfy Sirona's desire to cook. Thinking of this, Zumu couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sirona, who was eating with her head down, heard Zumu's laughter. She raised her head and asked Zumu, "Zumu, what's wrong? What are you laughing at?" Hearing Sirona's words, Zumu felt like putting away his smile and said to Sirona, "Nothing, I'm happy for Zioxia and Masashi." "Masashi, I can be a non-human, but you are a real dog." Sirona also smiled sweetly from the bottom of her heart when she heard Zumu's words. She said to Zumu, "Yes, Zioxia and Masashi haven't eaten the food I cooked for a long time. I've been wanting to try my cooking again." After saying that, she smiled again. It seemed as if she could see Zioxia and Masashi eating the food she cooked in a while. She looked very happy. Thinking of this, Shirona looked determined again. In her life, no one has ever been so happy to eat the food she cooked. This time, there were two people at once. Chapter 464. There is no way to avoid it. Shirona was so happy that she was looking forward to Zioxia and Musashi coming back soon. Shirona wanted to let the poor children of these two people taste her cooking skills. Compared with Shirona's excitement, Musashi and Zioxia were not so happy now. The two watched the hands of time go by little by little. The hearts of the two people were also getting colder. Now the two people really didn't want to go to Zumu's house at all. When they thought of the food cooked by Shirona in Zumu's house, they were not so enthusiastic about the gorgeous competition. Thinking of this, the two looked at each other. Endless sadness spread in their hearts. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door, and only a voice was heard outside the door. "Ms. Musashi, Ms. Zioxia, it's time for us to leave." Hearing this, Zioxia and Musashi hugged each other, trembling all over. The most worried thing was about to happen. Thinking of this, the two simply thought it over, and stretched their heads and cut their heads. It was death anyway, so the two stood up and walked out the door, exuding a momentum of wind and cold water. Speaking of this, we have to say that Shirona is now looking forward to the two of them. Shirona, who was still waiting hard, suddenly received a call. She looked carefully and found that it was really Kyle's call. Shirona picked up the phone directly and said to the phone, "Father, is there anything?" Kyle, who was now full of longing for Shirona, was stunned when he heard Shirona's words. "Good guy, I, as a father, must have something to contact you before I can call you." This daughter, after all, was led astray by Zumu, the ungrateful wolf. Thinking of this, Kyle cleared his throat and said to Shirona, "Shirona, Zioxia and Musashi have already set off, and they will probably be at your place in a while." Hearing Kyle's words, Shirona was delighted, cheered directly, and said loudly, "Really? That's great, I'll cook now." After that, she hung up the phone and ran towards dinner. Kyle, who was on the other side of the phone, heard the busy tone coming from the phone, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Girls can stay at home when they grow up. After not seeing her father for such a long time, Shirona didn't even reminisce about the past. Her mind was full of other people. This made Kyle's heart bitter. Suddenly, Kyle was stunned. What did he just hear? Shirona was going to cook for Zioxia and Musashi. What Shirona made was for people to eat. Just now Kyle was still thinking about whether to go back with Musashi and Zioxia to see how Shirona was doing recently. If Kyle hadn't been really busy recently, he might have really gone there just now. Now he had no other thoughts in his mind. There was only a sense of relief. Fortunately, Kyle didn't go, otherwise he might really have to try the terrible meal. Shirona didn't know what Kyle was thinking now. At this time, her mind was full of Zioxia and Musashi coming soon. She needed to cook quickly, otherwise when the two of them arrived, they would not be able to eat. Thinking of this, Shirona started to get busy in the kitchen. Zumu, who was standing by, saw Shirona rush into the kitchen. Even with his eyes closed, he could guess that it must be those two unlucky kids coming, otherwise Shirona wouldn't be so excited. Thinking of this, Zumu showed a smile of relief. Zumu was smart, otherwise this disaster would have befallen him. Thinking of this, Zumu couldn't help but feel proud. For Shirona, happy days are always short. In Shirona's heart, she just wanted to cook a meal for Musashi and Zioxia to welcome them. Time is always short. Just when Shirona had just put the prepared food on the table, there was a sound of a helicopter outside the door. Shirona jumped up happily. Now she knew that the sound coming from outside the door proved that Zioxia and Musashi had arrived. Thinking of this, Shirona hurried out of the door. Zioxia and Musashi got off the plane with sad faces. Seeing Shirona's appearance, her originally sad face became even uglier. Shirona didn't care about their appearance. She just wanted the two of them to sit down and have a good meal. She couldn't see the expressions on Zioxia and Musashi's faces. Shirona now took one of them by the hand and dragged them to the table. She pushed the two of them to the table and said to them happily, "Zioxia and Musashi, I specially prepared a feast for you. Come and enjoy it." Zioxia and Musashi smiled bitterly when they heard what Shirona said. It's finally here. This terrible thing has happened to them. Seeing the expressions of the two people, Sirona looked at them with a questioning look on her face, and asked them, "What's wrong? You too? Is the food I cooked not to your liking? Why don't you eat it?" Hearing Sirona's words, Zioxia had an idea and said to Sirona, "Sister Sirona, I have a poor appetite recently. It may be okay to eat a little, but I can't eat too much. The old aunt has a good appetite recently, she can eat a lot. You let her eat more." Hearing Zioxia's words, Masashi on the side suddenly felt that there was no hope in life. "What's the matter? Didn't you say that you would go together? You want to fly alone halfway, and kick me?" Thinking of this, Masashi looked at Zioxia with an angry face. And Sirona on the side heard Zioxia's words, and asked Zioxia with concern, "What's the matter, Zioxia? Why do you have no appetite recently? Are you sick?" Hearing Sirona's words, Masashi felt helpless in his heart. "There is a swear word that I don't know whether I should say." Thinking of this, Masashi calmed down. He said to Sirona, "Sirona, don't listen to what Zioxia said. She can eat and drink well recently, she is lying to you." After that, Masashi looked at Zioxia with a provocative look. Zioxia was stunned when she heard what Masashi said. Then she looked at Masashi with angry eyes. Masashi felt Zioxia's gaze and was very proud. "I told you to abandon me just now. Now try again and see who can run away." When Sirona heard what Masashi said, her eyes changed instantly when she looked at Zioxia, as if she felt Sirona's gaze. Zioxia trembled all over and said to Sirona flatteringly, "Sister Sirona, I am teasing you." Then she looked at Masashi with murderous eyes. Masashi was noticed by Zioxia's eyes. As if she didn't feel it, she still looked at Zioxia with a provocative look. Zioxia was a little exasperated at this time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 465, "Let's collect the ribbons," yelled at Masashi, "Auntie, you are so bad." Then looked at the dark food that Sirona prepared for them. Instantly, the young face was filled with sorrow. Sirona looked at Zioxia with cold eyes. Coldly said, "Zioxia, what, don't you like the food I cook?" Hearing Sirona's words, Zioxia smiled awkwardly and said quickly, "Sister Sirona, how could it be? How could I not like the food you cook?" As she said that, she picked up a piece of food that she didn't know what it was and ate it in big mouthfuls. At this moment, Zioxia had the urge to die. Sure enough, Sister Sirona's cooking skills have not changed. The food she made is still so unpalatable. At this time, Masashi saw Zioxia who was still compromising. He had to pick up a piece of black food with grief and anger, put it in his mouth. The moment this piece of food entered his stomach, Masashi only felt that he was sweating all over. Seeing Sirona standing aside, Masashi asked with doubt, "Sirona, why don't you eat?" Hearing Masashi's words, Sirona smiled and said to the two, "Don't worry about me, I've finished eating." The two people who could still hold on heard Sirona's words, and their mood instantly fell from the bottom of the valley to the ground. "It's really not a human being, to torture the two of us." It can be said that Sirona, you have tried your best. Zumu, who had been watching this drama on the side, saw this scene and hurriedly said to Sirona, "Sirona, Zioxia and Masashi just came to our house and haven't rested well. I'm afraid they have no appetite for anything. You might as well let them rest for a while." Zumu's words made the two people like listening to the sound of nature, and hurriedly nodded to Sirona. Sirona saw Zumu also spoke, and when she saw the appearance of the two people, she instantly became like a deflated balloon. She compromised and said, "Okay, then you have a good rest today. I'll make another one for you tomorrow." Zioxia and Masashi didn't care what kind of fancy things Sirona wanted to do tomorrow. Now Zioxia and Masashi just wanted to get out of the sea of suffering as soon as possible. Don't suffer this kind of pain again. Thinking of this, Zioxia hurriedly said to Sirona, "Sister Sirona, we just arrived at your house and we really have no appetite. You continue to cook tomorrow, we will definitely finish it." As she said, Zioxia and Masashi looked at Sirona with pitiful eyes. Sirona, who seemed to be moved by their words, had to nod. Sirona said to the two people, Let's talk about it tomorrow. You drove to our house in a dusty way, and you haven't had a good welcome yet. Then I will definitely make an exceptionally delicious meal tomorrow to make up for today's impoliteness. Zioxia and Masashi didn't take Sirona's words to heart when they heard them. Now they just want to survive today, so how can they care about tomorrow's flood? Seeing that Sirona agreed to their request, Zioxia and Masashi looked at each other, and they saw the joy of being saved from a disaster in each other's eyes. Sirona, who had just finished talking to the two people, saw that since the two people could no longer eat, she had to follow Zumu into the bedroom in a depressed mood. Before entering the bedroom, Zumu made a mouth shape to Zioxia and Masashi, saying, "I can only help you up to this point." Seeing Zumu's mouth shape, Zioxia and Masashi looked at Zumu with gratitude. Zumu is still a good person, otherwise he might not survive until midnight today. Thinking of this, the two of them took the food on the table and poured it into the trash can at the same time. It must be said that these things made by Sirona are not eaten by dogs. Sirona, who walked into the bedroom, hugged Zumu and said to Zumu aggrievedly, "Zumu, do you think the food I cook is so bad? Why don't they like it?" Hearing Sirona's words, Zumu's forehead was sweating. "What do you mean by not tasty? To be honest, the things you made are not food for human consumption." Of course, these words can only be kept in mind and thought about slowly. It is impossible to say it out loud. Once it is said out loud, it will face the wrath of Sirona. Thinking of this, Zumu said to Sirona gently, "How could it be? What Sirona makes is the most delicious." Zioxia and Masashi are just too tired today. If I make these things tomorrow, they will definitely eat them happily. Have you forgotten that they used to eat happily? Zumu's words reminded Sirona of the time when Zioxia and Masashi had dinner. They were indeed very happy. Zioxia and Masashi, which eye of yours saw that I was happy? After Zumu's guidance, Sirona's mood suddenly improved. She said to Zumu, "Okay, then I must make a good meal for the two of them tomorrow. Make up for what you missed today." Hearing this, Zumu smiled awkwardly. Why does he have a deep sense of guilt? Thinking of this, Zumu suddenly felt very sorry for Zioxia and Masashi. After all, these two children knew nothing, and Zumu arranged everything clearly under such circumstances. But Sirona was different from Zumu. At this moment, she suddenly felt happy. She jumped and went to Washington. Seeing Sirona leaving him, Zumu went downstairs and saw Zioxia and Masashi pouring food one by one. Zumu couldn't help laughing out loud. Zioxia and Masashi, who were busy, were startled when they heard the voice. They raised their heads quickly and felt relieved when they found that the person who came was Zumu. They were really afraid of Sirona now. Zumu saw the two people's frightened look, and said with a smile, "Don't be afraid. I will always stand with you in Sirona's cooking." After that, he looked at the two people with a sincere face. Hearing Zumu's words, Zioxia and Masashi looked at Zumu with emotion. The two unlucky children had no idea that the great man in front of them was the source of their suffering. If they knew, they would probably kill Zumu several times with just their eyes. Zumu saw the look in their eyes and said to them, "I have already asked you about the gorgeous competition. This gorgeous competition is not much different from the one in your world. You also need to get 5 ribbons. It should be easy to get these 5 ribbons with your strength. But when it comes to the finals of the gorgeous competition, I'm afraid it won't be that easy for you to win." Hearing Zumu's words, the two people's mood instantly improved. The gorgeous competition they had been thinking about was about to come. At this time, they suddenly felt that the hardships they had suffered for the gorgeous competition were not important. Thinking of this, Zioxia said to Zumu, "Brother Zumu, when are we going to collect the ribbons?" Chapter 466, New Uses of Lugia. Zioxia's words made Zumu sigh in his heart. How addicted are these two people? When they heard about the gorgeous competition, they even forgot that there would be a disaster tomorrow. Or interest can make people forget their worries. Thinking of this, Zumu said to Zioxia, "Don't worry about the ribbons. I will take you to collect them little by little tomorrow. But I won't do it. You need to do all the fighting by yourselves." After saying that, Zumu looked at the two people in front of him calmly. But after hearing Zumu's words, Zioxia and Masashi seemed to have known it for a long time. They looked at Zumu calmly, and Masashi said to Zumu, "Zumu, You can't help with this matter. We enjoy the fun of fighting by ourselves. Masashi's words made Zumu a little helpless. Good guy. It turns out that I, Zumu, am just a tool man. It seems that he felt Zumu's thoughts. Zioxia said to Zumu embarrassedly, Brother Zumu, don't worry. We will definitely shine in this competition. I will definitely defeat the old ant and win the championship of this gorgeous competition. Masashi, who was originally listening to Zioxia's words with an agreeable look on his face, suddenly had a big question mark on his head after hearing this. What's going on? Weren't we good sisters just now? How come it's only 2 sentences and we are going to fight again? Thinking of this, Masashi's head was full of black lines. In addition, she and Zioxia didn't get along. The fact that the battle line could be unified this time was just based on their common enemy, Sirona's food. Now there was no need to eat the food. Zioxia instantly showed her true colors and drew a line with Masashi. She vowed to defeat Masashi and win the first place in the gorgeous competition. At this time, Masashi's competitive spirit was also stimulated by Zioxia. I only heard Masashi say to Zioxia with disdain, Little brat, isn't it too early for you to say these things now? Zioxia next to him continued, Old ant, don't worry. I will definitely defeat you, stand on your stepping stone, and win the championship of the gorgeous competition. After saying that, he snorted and ran back to the bedroom. Seeing Zioxia's behavior, Masashi suddenly thought of Zumu next to him. When he thought that her and Zioxia's childish behavior were seen by Zumu, Masashi's face instantly turned red. He said to Zumu, Zumu, I'm going to rest first. Good night. After saying that, Masashi ran back to the bedroom without looking back. Seeing the appearance of the 2 people, Zumu couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Fortunately, my house is big enough. Otherwise, if these 2 children share a bedroom, they might tear down the house. Thinking of this, Zumu looked at the mess on the side of the table. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. At this time, Zumu suddenly remembered that there was a sinner in his Pokeball. Clearing his mind, Zumu patted the Pokeball on his waist. He called out Lugia, who was still depressed in the Pokeball. He pointed at the dishes on the table and said to Lugia, Lugia, it's time for you to atone for your sins. Now you have to clean up all the dishes in front of you. After that, Zumu walked back to the bedroom without looking back. Lugia was still in a daze. Lugia, who had just reacted, saw the dishes on the table and couldn't help complaining. Me, divine beast Lugia, you asked me to wash the dishes? I felt it was too much for you to let me be a mount. Now you are asking me to do housework. What's the matter? Now the divine beasts and your hands are all cabbages? At this time, Lugia felt more and more wronged. But Lugia had no choice. Lugia believed that as long as he dared to say no, he might not see him until the end. Thinking of this, even Lugia who felt wronged could only bite the bullet and do it. You don't know until you do it. You will be shocked when you do it. How could Lugia have hands? A feather on the pair of big wings was almost as big as these plates and chopsticks. This was really too difficult for him. Instantly, a name flashed through his mind. Isn't this his apprentice? So, Lugia communicated with Lilas in his mind. Lilas, who was called, flashed to Lugia's side. He said to Lugia, Master, are we going to train again? At this, Lila's eyes were shining. Lugia, who was a little embarrassed, pretended to be serious and said to Lilas, Lilas, now I have a new training method for you. Do you see these dishes in front of you? Now use your mental power to move them to the kitchen. Hearing Lugia's words, Lilas understood instantly. Seeing Lilas's expression of I understand everything, Lugia didn't know why he always felt uneasy in his heart. But Lugia didn't know what caused it. So Lugia could only attribute this uneasiness to the sequelae of what happened just now. Thinking of this, Lugia stopped thinking. Lugia patted Lila's head and said to him seriously, Lilas, this training is extremely difficult. Can you stick to it? Hearing Lugia's words, Lilas replied seriously, Master, don't worry, Lilas will definitely train seriously. After that, he started training. Seeing that Lilas had already started training, Lugia came to the living room and lay down comfortably. He began to enjoy his ultimate life. Just when Lugia was dazed, he heard the sound of plates breaking one after another. Lugia, who was still a little confused, didn't react in his heart. Suddenly, he remembered Laila's training. Lugia jumped up directly, looking towards the kitchen. It didn't matter if he looked at it. He saw Zumu standing at the door of the bedroom with a dark face. He looked at him with murderous intent. Zumu slowly walked to the side of Laila's and said to him, "Lailas, what are you doing?" Hearing Zumu's words, Lailas was still using his mental power to control the remaining dishes. He said to Zumu seriously, "I am completing the training task assigned to me by Master Lugia." After that, he still began to train seriously. After Zumu got the answer he wanted, he looked at Lugia with a cold face. When Lugia saw Zumu's look, Lugia really wanted to die. Lugia looked at Zumu with a smirk on his face. He was timid and didn't know what to say. Zumu saw Lugia's cowardly look. He sneered and continued, "Lugia, it seems that you are very good. You know how to assign training tasks to others. Tell me, how should I train?" Chapter 467, The Light Goes Out, I Go Out. When Lugia heard what Zumu said, he cried. He said to Zumu, "I was wrong, Zumu. I promise I won't do it again unless I kill you." After that, he pointed at the ceiling with his huge wings. At this time, Lugia saw the light on the ceiling. Suddenly, an idea came to him, and he said to Zumu seriously, "I swear to this light, if I have the idea of committing a crime again, let this light go out, and the light will go out and the spirit will go away." At this time, as luck would have it, because Lugia swore with too much force, he directly smashed the light on the ceiling. There was only a bang. Lugia was stunned. "No way, we won't do that. I just swore a simple oath. There is no other meaning. I just want to fool Zumu. How come you take this light seriously?" Thinking of this, Lugia suddenly felt sad. "Just now, I said the light will go out and the spirit will go away. What should I do? Should I go or not?" Thinking of this, Lugia suddenly felt that there was no love in this world anymore. Zumu, who was standing on top, was also stunned when he saw this scene. "Good guy." Lugia just said that he would not cause trouble. As soon as he finished speaking, he broke the lamp. Lugia didn't want this to happen. Lugia was unlucky today. He made mistakes in everything. I didn't realize that he had such potential before. Thinking of this, Zumu squeezed out 3 words from his teeth, "Lugia." Hearing Zumu's words, Lugia fell to the ground and covered his head with his wings. He said to Zumu in fear, "Zumu, I really know I was wrong, and I won't do it again." Hearing Lugia's words, Zumu ignored him. He just looked at Lugia quietly. Lugia, who was lying on the ground, heard no sound. Slowly raised his head and looked at Zumu. He only saw Zumu looking at him coldly. Lugia was really panicked at this time. "No, brother. Don't look at me like that." Zumu saw Lugia's appearance and said to him directly, "Go back to the Pokeball now. You are not allowed to come out unless I call you." Put him in solitary confinement. Hearing Zumu's words, Lugia felt relieved. Fortunately, Zumu didn't say he was going to do it, just put him in solitary confinement. Anyway, he can't be locked up for too long. I guess he can be released soon. After all, Lugia, as a mount, still has his mission. Thinking of this, Lugia flew directly back to the Pokeball on Zumu's waist. Zumu, who saw Lugia return to the Pokeball, once again cast his eyes on Ralts, who was still training hard. He said to the serious Ralts, "Ralts, you don't have to train for now. Continue training in 2 days." Hearing Zumu's words, Ralts looked aggrieved and said to Zumu, "Zumu, do you dislike my lack of strength? Now you don't let me train." Ralts' words gave Zumu a headache. Lailas, this silly boy, is good in everything except that he is a little too simple. So Zumu could only gently say to Lailas, "I don't dislike your lack of strength, but the training you have done cannot help you grow your abilities." Hearing Zumu's words, Lailas nodded to Zumu, not quite understanding. He also returned to the Pokeball all of a sudden. Only Zumu was left standing alone in the empty hall. Now Zumu really felt speechless. On this day, I had thought that I could rest comfortably for a day. But Lugia, this fool, ruined it all. The original happy feeling was gone, and only a mess was left in front of Zumu. Zumu finally cleaned up the mess on the floor. Seeing the restored house, Zumu really felt unusually tired. Now the only way to comfort Zumu's injured heart is to go back to the bedroom and hug Sirona to sleep. Thinking of this, Zumu hurried back to the bedroom to rest. The next morning, a knock on the door woke Zumu from his sleep. Zumu opened his eyes and saw Sirona lying beside him, which filled his heart with tenderness. The current life made Zumu linger, accompanying Sirona every day. Isn't this being in a gentle place? Before Zumu could continue to think about a better life, the knock on the door once again woke Zumu from his fantasy. Zumu, who came back to his senses, looked at the bedroom door and showed a helpless smile. There was no need to think about who knocked on the door with this knock. In this room, besides Sirona and him, there were only Masashi and Zioxia. Thinking of this, Zumu stood up from the bed. He put on his clothes and opened the door. As expected by Zumu, as soon as he opened the door, he saw Masashi and Zioxia, who were ready to go, looking at Zumu with anticipation. Seeing Zumu opening the door, Zioxia said to Zumu happily, "Brother Zumu, Masashi and I are already ready. When are we going to leave?" After that, she looked at Zumu expectantly again. Zumu heard Zioxia's words and took out his mobile phone to check the time. It was only 5 o'clock in the morning. Zumu said to Zioxia and Masashi helplessly, "Zioxia and Masashi, it's only 5 o'clock now. Are you guys a little too anxious?" Hearing Zumu's words, Zioxia and Masashi suddenly felt guilty. They would not tell Zumu the purpose of going out so early. As long as the two of them run fast enough, Shirona's breakfast will not catch up with them. As if he could sense the thoughts in their hearts, Zumu looked at the two helplessly. He said to them, "Don't worry, you two, I'll make breakfast later." Hearing Zumu's words, Zioxia and Masashi's eyes suddenly lit up. Regardless of whether the food Zumu made was delicious, at least it was food for people. It was much better than the dark dishes made by Shirona. In addition, Zumu's cooking skills were really good, so they couldn't find any problems. Hearing Zumu's words, the two people's tense hearts finally breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, the tense nerves of the two people also relaxed, and a wave of sleepiness came again. Thinking of this, Zioxia and Masashi looked at each other, and Zioxia said to Zumu, "In that case, brother Zumu, let's go back and sleep for a while." Zumu saw the look on their faces and it was confirmed at once. The two of them just didn't want to eat the food made by Shirona. They also said that they wanted to go to the game quickly. These were all excuses. So, Zumu said to Zioxia and Masashi, "Okay, you guys go and have a good rest. You guys take a good rest for a while, and I'll call you after I've prepared the meal." Chapter 468 I am an honest child. Zumu's words completely let out the sleepiness in the hearts of the two people. Zioxia and Masashi yawned and returned to their bedrooms. Seeing Zioxia and Masashi return to their bedrooms, Zumu smiled helplessly. These two people are really interesting. Day by day, what they think is what they think. At this time, Zumu couldn't go back to the room to sleep. After all, he was awake. Now it's better to cook a meal so that Shirona can get up and eat. Thinking of this, Zumu did it as he said and walked towards the kitchen. Just when Zumu was busy eating, Shirona suddenly appeared in the kitchen. Shirona saw Zumu who was cooking. She couldn't help but be moved. Shirona quietly hugged Zumu from behind and said to Zumu, "Zumu, it's great to have you." Hearing Shirona's words, Zumu couldn't help but smile knowingly. This silly girl, who else can Zumu be good to if he doesn't treat Shirona well? Thinking of this, Zumu turned around and looked at Shirona with a doting face, said to Sirona, "Sirona, aren't you my favorite? I must be good to you." After saying that, Zumu hugged Sirona tightly. Zioxia, who smelled the fragrance of the food, wanted to see what Zumu had cooked, but just as she walked into the kitchen, she saw Zumu and Sirona hugging each other tightly. When Zioxia saw this scene, she screamed and covered her eyes with her hands. But the finger pointed directly at the Great Rift Valley of East Africa and clearly told Zumu. Zioxia was very interested in the scene in front of her. When Sirona heard Zioxia scream, she blushed. She broke free from Zumu's arms, took Zioxia's hand, ran to the dining table, and waited quietly for the food Zumu had prepared. Zumu couldn't help laughing when he saw Sirona's shy look. Then he turned his attention to the kitchen. After a while, Zumu brought the 8 dishes and 1 soup he had just cooked to the table. Seeing the food on the table, the eyes of Sirona and the other 2 were all shining. It must be said that Zumu's cooking skills are still good. The smell alone made the 3 of them drool, especially Zioxia and Masashi, plus the baptism of Shirona's dark cuisine last night. Now the stomachs of the 2 are already empty. Seeing the food made by Zumu, the 2 people's hunger was even more serious. When the 2 saw the food, they didn't wait for Zumu's food to be put on the table, and directly stretched their chopsticks to the rice bowl. Zumu saw the appearance of the 2 people and couldn't help but feel happy. These 2 children are really too cute. They dare not say it when they are so hungry. Seeing the appearance of Zioxia and Masashi, Shirona couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Shirona thought to herself in her heart, "This is all my fault. I got up so late and didn't make a good meal for the 2 of them." Thinking of this, Shirona said to the 2 with guilt, "Zioxia, Masashi, I'm really sorry. I got up late today and didn't make a welcome meal for you. I'm so sorry." Hearing Shirona's words, Zioxia and Masashi were stunned. "You can't do this, sister. We just want to have a good meal. We just want to fill our stomachs, not to die." The 2 looked at each other, and a tacit understanding appeared between them again. Zioxia smiled lively and said to Sirona, "Sister Sirona, don't worry about it. In our hearts, we have been a family for a long time. What's the point of welcoming you?" Masashi, who was standing aside, heard what Zioxia said and couldn't help but give Zioxia a thumbs up. "This little girl is really smart," she thought of this reason. Seeing Masashi's praise, Zioxia was even more proud at this time. When Sirona heard Zioxia's words, she began to murmur in her heart, "This Zioxia state is a little abnormal. Yesterday she said she had no appetite, and today she became a family again. It seems that Masashi was right yesterday. This Zioxia just doesn't want to eat the food she cooked." Thinking of this, Sirona's eyes were suddenly full of murderous intent. Looking directly at Zioxia, who was still proud, suddenly felt a chill on her body. She turned her head to Sirona a little stiffly. Seeing Sirona's eyes, Zioxia was really panicked at this time. "No, this script is wrong." Speaking of this, Zioxia asked Sirona timidly, "Sister Sirona, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so ugly?" After that, she looked at Sirona with concern. Sirona saw Zioxia's look and really felt a little angry. Who did this Zioxia learn from? She didn't say a single truth. I don't know who she learned a mouthful of lies from. Don't think about it. It must be her dad. If Kyle knew what Sirona was thinking, he would definitely cry in the toilet. This is the little cotton jacket he has been thinking about. Now it can't be said to be leaking, but it can be said that the cotton has already flown. Of course, Kyle, who is busy with his head now, doesn't know these things. Otherwise, Kyle's head is not just as simple as big. Sirona thought that it must be her dad who led Zioxia astray. So Sirona said to Zioxia earnestly, "Zioxia, don't learn from your uncle Kyle. You and your brother Zumu should study hard." Zumu, who was standing aside, couldn't help but feel happy in his heart when he heard Sirona's words. "Nothing can be more joyful than being praised by your wife." Zumu said to Sirona at this time, "Sirona, we should be low-key. Although my father-in-law is not as good as me, after all, he is your father, my father-in-law." Zumu's words made Sirona serious. Zioxia and Masashi only saw Sirona nod to Zumu seriously, and then said to Zumu, "Zumu, I know, I shouldn't ask my father to meet your standards." Zioxia and Masashi heard the conversation between the 2 people, and they felt bad immediately, and couldn't help but think how could there be such a shameless person in the world. So, Zioxia secretly said to Sirona, "Sister Sirona, Uncle Kyle didn't teach me bad things." Hearing Zioxia's words, Sirona was shocked, and then her face was full of disbelief. She said to Zioxia in disbelief, "How is it possible? Then who did you learn to lie from?" Zioxia cried and said to Sirona, "Sister Sirona, I didn't lie. Really, I have always been an honest child." After saying that, she looked at Sirona sincerely. Zumu on the side laughed out loud, and Zioxia was still struggling here. Zumu had long seen that Zioxia was a very smart girl. If Sirona didn't raise her vigilance, it is really possible that she would fall into Zioxia's trap. Chapter 469. Are you here to cause trouble again? Hearing what Zioxia said, Sirona said to Zioxia with disdain, Zioxia, you can't fool me with this trick. After that, Sirona looked at Zioxia with pride. Hearing what Sirona said, Zioxia lowered her head in embarrassment, said to Sirona, okay, Sister Sirona, I really don't want to eat the food you cook. Besides, I just arrived yesterday. I'm really not hungry. Now Zioxia still wants to struggle desperately. Sirona, who had seen through it a long time ago, said to Zioxia calmly, okay, I forgive you, but next time you must taste my cooking skills. After that, she looked at Zioxia and Masashi with expectation. Sirona's words once again made Zioxia and Masashi fall into a trough. But the two of them thought about it. This is not bad. At least now the two of them don't have to eat the food cooked by Sirona. One day is one day. The two of them don't ask for too much now. While Zumu and his group were still arguing about the power of Sirona's food, in a certain world, 10 people sat around a round table. Finally, an old voice broke the dull atmosphere around them. Tell me, who is this Zumu? The Hunters Guild lost 3 presidents to this man. Tell me, what do you do for a living? After saying that, the owner of the voice showed his face. This was an old man with white hair, but full of majesty. As he spoke, a trace of sadness appeared in his eyes. This man was none other than the magician's biological father. At this moment, he was extremely angry. Since he founded the Hunters Guild, the Hunters Guild has never experienced such a big loss. Thinking of this, he thought of the children he had carefully cultivated. The 12 presidents of the Hunters Guild, except for the magician, were collected by this man from various planes. That's right, they were collected. In his eyes, these people were his pawns. They were all bodyguards who secretly protected his biological son. Now, I didn't expect that these people didn't protect his child well. Let the magician die. Thinking of this, Taro became even more angry. He picked up the cup on the side and threw it out fiercely. This group of rubbish in front of him, after the magician died, did not think of revenge, but came to find him. Taro was a little crazy at this time. Seeing Taro's appearance, the presidents at the table stood up at once. In their hearts, the man in front of them is the one who should not be provoked. It can be said that Taro was the one who made them achieve what they have today, without any other ideas. The current group of presidents only thought about how to make Taro calm down. The Pope on the side saw Taro's appearance and couldn't help feeling a little worthless. Since they became the presidents of the Hunters Guild, they have been giving everything for the Hunters Guild. It has to be said that Taro only has his own son in his eyes. He didn't take the group of people in front of him seriously at all. Thinking of this, the Pope walked to Taro and said to the angry Taro, Godfather, we don't have the ability to protect the magician, which is why we dare not go to find Zumu again. After saying that, the Pope looked at Taro with his most sincere eyes. Hearing the Pope's words, Taro became even more angry. You can't protect my son and you're still shirking your responsibilities. It's really a waste of my painstaking efforts. Even a group of pigs can know that the first thing to do is to take revenge. Instead of looking for the owner, the more Taro thought about it, the angrier he became. He looked at the Pope in front of him and felt annoyed. He raised his hand and slapped the Pope. He shouted at the Pope, I can't beat you. I can't beat you. You 9 people, each of you has a divine beast in your hand, and now you tell me that you can't beat it? You tell me? What's the point of me raising you? Hearing Taro's words, all the presidents had a trace of anger in their hearts. But looking at Taro in front of them, they didn't dare to speak too loudly. They knew the terrifying place of this man in front of them. The 11 of them were all people who stood out from hundreds of people. As for the rest, they had long since died with their failure. It can be said that Taro's way of training them was very simple, that is, raising poison. The winners were the ones who survived. Everyone had only one chance to fail. Fortunately, they survived. How could there be no smart people who lived to their point? The stupid ones had died long ago. Looking at the group of presidents in front of him, he remained silent. Angry, Taro said to everyone, Pope, Queen, Emperor, since the 2 magicians are dead, the 3 of you go to avenge my child. If this mission fails, You don't have to come back." The three people whose names were called came out and didn't say anything, but just nodded to Taro. Looking at the three people in front of him, Taro's anger was slightly reduced. These three people can be said to be the best among the presidents of the Hunters Guild. The Hunters Guild has developed from nothing to the behemoth it is today, and these three people in front of him can be said to have made great contributions. Taro didn't want to treat the hero of the Hunters Guild like this. However, the death of the magician made Taro unable to control his emotions. The three popes who received the order looked at each other, disappeared directly on the spot. The three popes in the Blood Pond secret realm fell directly to the place where the magician died. Only a sissy voice was heard, saying to the pope, "Brother, what should we do?" After that, he looked at the pope with a look of comfort. The pope was a little scared by the queen's eyes. He shuddered. Then, he said to the queen angrily, "Old three, if you look at me with this kind of eyes again, be careful that I will let you go to the underground to find the magician." Hearing the pope's words, the queen also knew that the pope was a little angry at this time. He couldn't help but laugh and said to the emperor, "Second brother, look at the eldest brother, scolding me again." The emperor, who was called by the queen, was also a little helpless. This old three is good in everything, but his temper is like a woman. If it was a real woman, the emperor and the pope would not say anything. But you are a big, bearded man, speaking in such a delicate tone, who wouldn't feel disgusted when seeing you like this? Thinking of this, the emperor said to the pope and the queen, "Brother, third brother, stop it. That old man Taro is using us brothers as cannon fodder. Everyone knows what he is thinking, asking us to escort his son." Chapter 470. Please, speak normally. If the magician is an ambitious person, no, he doesn't need to be ambitious, as long as he is not a fool. But, what's the difference between a thing like that and a fool? Hearing the emperor's words, the pope was also a little helpless, and said to the queen and the emperor, "What can we do, who let our own strength not be strong enough? As long as the three of us have enough strength, I will definitely escape from the old man's palm and never see him again." Speaking of this, the pope couldn't help but think of the tragic fate of his three brothers. The three popes were originally three brothers with the same father and mother. They were born in a family where both parents were trainers. Originally, their lives were happy and worry-free, but their parents died in a trial. This made their originally wealthy family become broken. At this time, they met the devil Taro. At this time, Taro was still a young man. He stretched out his hand and said to the three brothers, "Your parents are dead. Now follow me. I will give you a happy and carefree childhood." The three brothers who heard this did not react at all to what kind of man was in front of them. They followed Taro home obediently. When they reached their destination, they found that what Taro said was a lie. In order to survive, the three of them could only continue to grow in the fight. In this way, the three of them came to this point step by step. The three brothers supported and encouraged each other in the fight. No one could be separated from each other for a long time. The three of them developed a habit in the early battles. That is, no one can be separated from each other. Until now, the three of them sleep and eat together. Therefore, the tacit understanding between the three is extremely high. There will also be a high tacit understanding in the battle. Thinking of this, the Pope looked at the two brothers in front of him, and tears could not help but welled up in the corners of his eyes. He said to the Emperor and the Queen, "Second brother, third brother, we must find an opportunity to improve our strength so as to escape the clutches of the old man Taro." Hearing the words of the Pope, the Queen and the Emperor could not help but feel a little sad. The fate of the three brothers has always been so tragic since the death of their parents. They have been hovering on the edge of death. This is not what they want at all. All they want is to find a place where no one lives in seclusion, and then accompany the other two brothers to spend their lives in peace. However, there is a big mountain in front of them. That is the old man Taro. Thinking of this, the three of them looked at each other, and endless sadness continued to spread around the three of them. Seeing that the atmosphere of the three people was a little wrong, the Pope could not help but say, "Let's go, second brother and third brother, let's go and solve this task." In the Pope's heart, the three of them are different from the two wastes of the magician and the priestess. Any of the three of them can have the ability to defeat the two magicians. Therefore, Zumu's ability is nothing big in their eyes. Thinking of this, the three people locked Zumu's address again based on the energy of the electric cat. After receiving the information, they immediately opened the space tunnel and teleported to the door of Zumu's house. At this time, Zumu was still listening to the noise of several people, and said to Sirona with a funny face, "Sirona, come on, eat quickly, we have things to do later, we are in a hurry now." Just as Zumu's voice fell, suddenly, a space fluctuation came from the door. Zumu, who had already experienced the world shuttle, he could feel at once that the energy of this space fluctuation was abnormally large. Thinking of this, Zumu's expression instantly became serious. He said to Sirona, "Sirona, take Zioxia and Masashi into the house, I will go to deal with something." Seeing Zumu's unusually serious expression, although Sirona didn't understand what he meant, she didn't refute it, but nodded to Zumu. Seeing Sirona agreed to his words, Zumu turned around and walked out the door. The three Pope brothers who had just been teleported through the space came out and saw Zumu standing at the door. He was stunned. "What's going on? I have only heard of cats catching mice. How come there are mice waiting for cats?" Thinking of this, the three popes were a little confused, and the pope said to Zumu, "Hello, is this Zumu's home?" Zumu, who had just walked to the door, saw the three popes who were teleported through space as soon as he came out, and greeted him politely as soon as he came out. Zumu was also stunned. Did he think wrong? Aren't these three people here to make trouble, but to visit him? Zumu, who was a little confused, said to the Pope, "Yes, I am Zumu." The three popes who got Zumu's answer immediately became excited. The Pope immediately changed his face and said to Zumu fiercely, "Good boy, we have been looking for you so hard. You offended our Hunters Guild and you still don't hide. And you dared to live in such a big house?" Zumu saw the Pope's look, and he was a little speechless. "Really? This Hunters Guild can only do the gourd baby to save his grandfather? Send one by one." One came the first time, two came the second time, and now three. "Do you really think that this is a garbage station, and you want all kinds of garbage?" Thinking of this, Zumu also said to the Pope and the other two, "Don't you hunters have any other skills? I'm a little tired of doing that. Do you know anything else except buzzing like a fly?" The first fool came up and said something harsh, and then died. The second magician and a woman were also procrastinating. They died again. "Aren't you three going to procrastinate too?" After saying that, he looked at the Pope and the other two with a sincere face. The Pope, who was embarrassed by Zumu's gaze, was a little angry at this time. Without waiting for the Pope to speak, the Queen on the side said to Zumu in a delicate voice, "Zumu brother, can you not be so fierce? My psychological quality is not good. If you do this, I'm scared." Hearing the Queen's words, Zumu felt nauseous in his heart. What is this thing? The big beard on his face looks like Zhongf, and he is also imitating Diao Chan's speech. Is this your ultimate move? Thinking of this, Zumu said to the Queen, "Big brother, can you talk like a man? You really look like a coward when you talk like that." After saying that, he looked at the Queen. Hearing Zumu's words, the Queen was also a little angry at this time. Can he be blamed? The Queen looked like a little girl when she was a child. In addition, she always played with a group of girls and developed this habit of talking. Who would have thought that since he was 15 years old, he has become more and more burly. He also slowly grew a big beard. Chapter 471, Sirona becomes popular. But the character he developed in his childhood made it impossible for him to change. This led to his big beard and delicate words. Not only Zumu couldn't stand it, but even his two brothers couldn't stand his appearance. But he couldn't change it yet. Because of this matter, he didn't know how many people he killed. As long as he said this, he helped to send away those who said this. Now when he heard Zumu's words, he didn't think about how angry he was. Now he just wanted to ravage Zumu. Let Zumu take responsibility for his actions. Thinking of this, the Queen said to Zumu, "Boy, do you know how many people died because of this sentence?" Zumu couldn't help laughing when he heard this, and said to the Queen disdainfully, "There are so many people who want me, Zumu, to die. Who do you think you are?" Zumu's words made the Queen's face pale with anger. If it comes to fighting, the Queen will not accept anyone. He can be the first to rush up, but if it comes to talking, the Queen can't say anyone. Hearing Zumu's words, the queen was extremely angry. Just as she was about to take action, the Pope stopped him and shook his head at him. Now the Pope wants to see what Zumu has in his hand to get rid of the 3 presidents of the Hunters Guild at once. But the queen couldn't stand Zumu's words, and the Pope was still trying to stop him. The angry queen saw the flowers and plants around her, so she started to destroy them instantly. Seeing the queen's behavior, Zumu's heart was about to be torn. What should he do? Chirona's flowers and plants were just arranged yesterday. Now that this fool has ruined them, you can imagine how angry Chirona will be. Thinking of this, Zumu felt very proud. Upstairs, Chirona was watching Zumu and the 3 brothers of the Pope by the window. Suddenly, she saw a man with a big beard on his face starting to destroy her garden. At this time, Chirona felt like she was going to collapse. What was wrong with her poor garden? It was destroyed twice in just 2 days. Thinking of this, Chirona opened the window and shouted to the queen, "What are you doing? Stop it!" After that, she ran out of the bedroom and ran out the door. The queen, who was still venting her anger on the Rona garden, heard a girl's voice and thought they were still mocking her. The anger in her heart became more vigorous, and the destruction became more vigorous. Zumu, who was standing aside, couldn't help but feel helpless when he saw the scene in front of him. Alas, why did this unlucky child do something else? You had to provoke Sirona. You have to know that when Sirona is angry, even Zumu has to retreat. Now there is another person who is looking for death. You are looking for death yourself, and it has nothing to do with me. Thinking of this, Zumu couldn't help but look at the queen with pity. At this time, the queen didn't notice Zumu's eyes at all, but the Pope saw Zumu's eyes. So, the Pope felt that something was wrong with the current situation. Why hasn't this Zumu taken action yet? In this case, they don't know anything about Zumu. At this time, Sirona ran out of the house. He shouted to the queen, "Stop it!" Zumu looked at Sirona in front of him, as if his eyes were about to spit fire. He couldn't help but feel sad for the queen in his heart. Queen Kondu hadn't looked at him yet, still immersed in her own world. Seeing this, Sirona felt that she couldn't bear it any longer. So, the Pope standing opposite Sirona saw that Sirona took out a Pokeball from her waist and threw it outside, shouting loudly, "Lucario, come out!" The Pope and the Emperor saw Sirona's Pokemon, and immediately threw out their own Pokeballs without hesitation and shouted loudly, "Come out, Gopalion, come out, Bilijan." So, 2 Pokemon appeared in Zumu's eyes. One was a 4-legged beast that looked like a sheep, with blue feathers all over its body, a pair of yellow horns, and gray spots on its neck and hind legs. The other Pokemon was a 4-legged Pokemon similar to an antelope, with most of its body green and a pair of legs on its head. Seeing that the opposite side was releasing Pokemon, Zumu suddenly felt that he couldn't be idle. Otherwise, wouldn't it be his wife who was bullied? Thinking of this, Zumu patted the Pokeball on his waist, only to see 2 Muto suddenly appear in front of everyone. The Pope and the Emperor on the side were also shocked when they saw Zumu's Pokemon. They really didn't expect that the young man in front of them had so many rare Pokemon in his hands. But time waits for no one. The Pope said to Copalion, "Copalion, protect the queen." After that, he cast his eyes on Zumu. The queen, who was just destroying the Sirona garden, also felt the crisis behind her. At this time, he also reacted, and saw the queen touch her waist and throw out a Pokeball. She shouted loudly, "Come out, Delakian." After that, she looked at Zumu with a fierce face. Just now, it was the Pope who didn't let him fight. Now that the Pope released the Pokemon first, he didn't restrain himself. He released his Pokemon directly. Zumu, who was standing at the door, saw the Pokemon released by the Pope and the other 2, and fell into deep thought. As a qualified trainer, how could Zumu not recognize the 3 Pokemon in front of him? But now Zumu didn't understand why the 3 righteous elves, Gopalion, Bilijan and Delakian, would follow an evil organization. Gopalion was calm, but didn't like to contact humans. This elf had fought with humans to protect other elves in the original world, and its eyes could make elves surrender. And Bilijan and Delakian, like Gopalion, had fought with humans to protect their own kind. As elves with a sense of justice, why would they help the 3 popes? The more Zumu thought about it, the more distressed he became. And he stopped thinking. Zumu said to the three popes with a cold face, "Since you insist on seeking death, then I, Zumu, can't stop you anymore. I hope that after you die, you can go underground and exchange experiences with the fool magician." After that, he looked at the Pope with a mocking face. Even if the Pope has better qualities, he can't help being looked at by Zumu's eyes, no matter how good-tempered he is. Thinking of this, the Pope said to Gopalion, "Gopalion, attack." Gopalion was a little hesitant when waiting for the order. As an elf with a strong sense of justice, he never wanted to engage in meaningless battles. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 472, Mutuo appears. All he wants is world peace. So, Gopalion said to the Pope, "Pope, is there anything wrong with the man in front of you?" Hearing Gopalion's words, the Pope was also a little confused. This Gopalion is good in everything, but his sense of justice is too strong. Before every battle, he would ask the trainer whether the enemy on the opposite side is a good person. The Pope had no choice but to lie to Gopalion every time and say that the opposite side is a bad guy. They are all murderers who hurt elves. Only in this way can Gopalion take action. So, the Pope said to Gopalion, "Gopalion, the man on the opposite side is a murderer who hurts elves. He always likes to hurt elves for fun." Hearing this, Gopalion felt that he really couldn't help it. Although Gopalion was full of justice, Gopalion's lifelong wish was to let every elf have a good life. After hearing the Pope's words, Gopalion had already defined Zumu as a murderer who liked to harm elves. So, Gopalion rushed directly towards Zumu. Seeing Gopalion's action, Kefan, who was standing next to Zumu, was a little confused. Although he could feel Gopalion's strength, which was indeed very strong, could Gopalion still compare with Kefan? Thinking of this, Kefan stopped thinking about it. Now he just wanted to teach Gopalion a lesson. Kefan suddenly took off and directly launched mind control. At the same time that Gopalion rushed over, Kefan instantly controlled Beligen to attack Gopalion. Before Gopalion ran to Zumu's side, Beligen directly knocked Gopalion, who was in a high-speed state, to the ground. Gopalion, who was knocked to the ground, was a little confused. He didn't know why Beligen, a fool, attacked him at such a high speed. Seeing the embarrassing look of the two elves, Kefan laughed happily. Hearing Kefan's laughter, Gopalion suddenly realized that Beligen, a fool, might be controlled by the elf in front of him. After all, Beligen is also a highly combative elf. The moment he was controlled by Kefan, he resisted Kefan's consciousness. Although he succeeded in regaining his body in the end, he still attacked Gopalion. Beligen, who had just reacted, looked at Gopalion with an apologetic look. Seeing Beligen's eyes, Gopalion also understood that the child should have reacted now. At this time, he looked at Kefan again, but this time he did not rush over as recklessly as before. Instead, he looked at Kefan with a wary face. Seeing Gopalion's appearance, Kefan was happy in his heart and said to Gopalion, "What's wrong? Why are you so cowardly?" After that, he began to laugh and looked at Gopalion with a mocking look. If it was Beligen, the fool, he might be fooled directly, but as an older elf, Gopalion looked extremely low level in his eyes. At this time, Keu, who was next to Zumu, said to Kefan weakly, "Kefan, can you give me one? I want to train myself too." After saying that, Keu looked at Kefan with expectation. Kefan, who was a little numb from being stared at by Keu, nodded to Keu and said, "Okay, then I'll give you this old dog," Kefan said while pointing his finger at Gopalion. Seeing Kefan insulting him like this, Gopalion seemed very angry. "Old dog? Man, this is obviously a sheep." "Okay." Gopalion, who originally wanted to take a step back, became more and more angry. He didn't retreat. He rushed directly towards Keu, and Keu saw Gopalion's actions. Keu's eyes were full of fear, but then he remembered what Lugia said to him, "The way to overcome fear is to face fear." Thinking of this, Ku's eyes were once again full of fighting spirit. He looked at Gopalian, who was rushing towards him with a firm gaze. Just as Gopal was about to reach her, Ku closed his eyes and began to attack Gopal with his mental power. Gopal, who was about to reach Ku, suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Now Gopal just realized that the little thing in front of him was not as fragile as he thought. On the contrary, Ku had a very strong fighting power. Thinking of this, Gopal also had some doubts in his heart. He didn't know whether he should go up. Thinking of this, Gopal decided that he should observe Ku from the side, see if he can find her weakness. If he can find Ku's weakness, then he will kill her with one blow. Unfortunately, Gopal has overlooked the most important part. Ku, as an elf who uses mental power, has extremely weak melee ability, let alone fighting. But Gopal didn't know these things. He was still muttering in his heart that the elf in front of him might be very strong. According to the attack strength of his mental power, it can be seen that he is also very experienced in close combat. If Ku knew what he was thinking, he would probably jump up with joy. As the evolution of Mewtwo, his melee ability is not that strong. Now suddenly there is a Pokémon that can affirm his melee ability. Ku watched the battle between Greninja and Lugia in the training ground. He had long envied the pleasure of these Pokémons being able to fight each other. Unfortunately, Ku now has no idea what Gopalian is thinking. Ku's mind is now all about how to defeat Gopalian. Unlike Ku and Gopalian, the two Pokémons on the other side, Delacian and Lucario, are fighting extremely fiercely. The bigger the two Pokémons are, the more fierce they fight, the larger the garden is destroyed. Sirona, who is standing aside, watched her garden become a wasteland again. She was so angry that she looked at the queen angrily and shouted at her, "That bad man, wait, you must atone for my garden." Hearing Sirona's words, the queen said to Sirona with disdain, "You little girl, you still want to show me your skeleton." The queen's words made Sirona completely crazy. I don't know why this queen suddenly got it, and she was able to make Sirona speechless. Seeing Sirona's aggrieved look, Zumu sneered and said to the queen, "I like our Sirona no matter what she is, unlike you, a sissy, who is still looking for a sense of existence here." After that, he looked at the queen with disdain. Chapter 473, The War Continues. Hearing Zumu's irritating words, coupled with Zumu's expression, the queen was so angry at Zumu that smoke came out of her head. The queen also knew that if it came to talking, she could not beat Zumu at all. Thinking of this, the queen shouted fiercely at Delacian, "Delacian, beat him hard, beat the two people in front of you into dog brains. I will let that stinky boy know what the dark law of a trainer is." Hearing the queen's words, Zumu sneered and continued to mock the queen. "Don't say it. I feel sick and want to vomit when I hear your sissy voice." After saying that, Zumu also made a vomiting gesture. Seeing Zumu's movements, the queen became even angrier. Now she was even more angry with Zumu. He was smoking just now, but now even his big black face turned pale. The poor queen herself didn't know what he looked like. Now she only thought about how to kill the boy in front of her. Then, she would smash Zumu's body into pieces. "I want to give the ashes to Zhu Yang." The Pope and the Emperor on the side saw the queen's look. They couldn't help but say to the queen, "Third brother, this stinky boy in front of you is very hateful. Don't be disturbed by his words." After that, the Pope looked at Zumu with a wary face. Seeing the expressions of the Pope and the Emperor, Zumu was also a little helpless. "No, big brother, don't look at me with that look. No matter what, I, Zumu, am an excellent young man with truth, goodness and beauty, not an unforgivable bad guy. Also, how did I harass you with words? Can you trouble me, big brother?" Thinking of it, Zumu said to the Pope with a helpless look, "Big brother, it's you who are looking for trouble, and it's you who are damaging my home and my garden. Now you look at me with this expression, readers may think I'm a bad guy." Hearing Zumu's words, the Pope was stunned. Readers? What readers? Of course, these did not delay the Pope's vigilance against Zumu. Seeing Zumu's expression, the Pope said seriously, "You kid don't have to pretend here. We admit that we are not good people. What about you? Are you a good person?" After saying that, he looked at Zumu with resentment. Being slandered by the Pope, even if others have a good temper, they will be angry. not to mention Zumu's character of revenge. At this time, Zumu said to the Pope with a mocking face, "Who gave you the courage to tell you that I am not a good person? You really think you are the protagonist? No more talk, let's see the truth." After saying that, he said to Kefen and Ku with a cold face, "Kefen, Ku, teach me how to be a small role." Hearing Zumu's words, Kefen and Ku immediately rushed towards Gopolian and Bilijan outside the door. Seeing Kefen and Ku rushing towards Gopolian and Bilijan, they were immediately a little angry. Everyone is also in the circle of mythical beasts. Now you two identical brats, you really don't take us brothers as one dish. Thinking of this, the two elves, Gopolian and Bilijan, looked at each other. They also rushed towards Kefan and Ku. As a fighting-type divine beast, Kefan fully exerted his ability. He came up and chopped the horns on Gopolian's head. Seeing Kefan's actions, Gopolian was furious. As an elf similar to a sheep, Gopolian has long regarded the horns on his head as extremely important. Normally, others don't even touch them, but you touch them. Now the elf in front of him is going to attack his horns. Thinking of this, Gopolian became even more angry. While Kefan was attacking, Gopolian dodged directly. He came behind Kefan and hit Kefan's neck hard. If it were an ordinary elf, he might be hit. But what kind of elf is Kefan? It is an elf standing on the top of the pyramid of divine beasts. Now Kefan directly felt the attack of Gopolian. Kefan turned around and hit Gopolian's fist hard. There was a sound of bang, and the two fists collided fiercely. Kefan stood still and did not move, while Gopolian took 2 steps back. The difference in fighting power was clearly distinguished at once. Gopolian also understood in his heart that he might not be Kefan's opponent. But in his heart, Zumu was an evil trainer, so the elves under Zumu must be evil elves. Gopolian's sense of justice made him unable to retreat. Once he retreated, the originally peaceful elf world might set off a bloody storm. Thinking of this, Gopolian's eyes gradually became firm. Even if the elf in front of him was extremely strong, what's the harm? I will go even if there are tens of millions of elves. So, Gopolian rushed directly towards Kefan. Kefan saw Gopolian's look and showed a trace of disdain at the corner of his mouth. Rushing towards Gopolian, the two elves had a common understanding and did not use their own skills. Instead, they used the most primitive fighting method of creatures. Although Gopolian had no hands, he had these 4 legs. So, the two elves in front of them fought each other with punches and kicks. Seeing the fighting method of Gopolian and Kefan, Zumu and the Pope also looked helpless. Zumu couldn't understand it in his heart. He could obviously fight with skills. Why did he have to use such a primitive method? Aren't skills cool? But seeing Kefan and Gopolian fighting so hard, he couldn't help but feel a little bit reluctant. How long have these two children under Zumu not fought? If they don't fight, I'm afraid they will forget that they are fighting elves. Thinking of this, Zumu looked at Kefan, who was having a lot of fun in the field, and shook his head. He decided to let Kefan indulge himself. Without Zumu's obstruction, Kefan can really be said to be indulging himself. This made the poor child Gopolian suffer. If he only talked about strength, he was not as strong as Kefan. Originally, he thought that he could use his skills to gain a slight advantage in the battle. Unfortunately, Kefan didn't give him this opportunity at all. When Gopolian was about to release his skills, Kefan interrupted his skills with a left hook. Until now, Gopolian simply stopped releasing skills. What if he couldn't beat him? But he didn't lose directly. So, Gopolian no longer thought about using skills, but started fighting with Kefan's frequency, punch after punch. The Pope on the side saw Gopolian's appearance. His face was green with anger, and he only heard the Pope shouting angrily, Chapter 474 Chapter 474 Hurry up, Gopolian. Is this how you fight? After saying this, the Pope looked at Gopolian with an angry face, as if fire was about to burst out of his eyes. Hearing the Pope's words, Gopolian looked helpless, and the baby couldn't say anything about his bitterness. The child originally wanted to fight normally. Two elves, you have one skill and I have one skill. How harmonious it is to fight like this. How normal. But now, this evil beast in front of him doesn't follow the normal routine at all. Instead, he uses the most primitive way of fighting. Thinking of this, Gopolian felt even more aggrieved. Kefan, who was fighting happily, heard Gopolian angrily say to him. The kid on the opposite side, Can we fight normally and not be so rude? Hearing Gopolian's words, Kefan was stunned. He said to Gopolian with a look of disdain, "Old man, no matter whether it is a white cat or a black cat, a good cat is one that can catch mice. Don't worry about what fighting method I use, you must know that I can definitely defeat you." After saying this, the disdain in Kefan's eyes became more obvious. Hearing Kefan's words, the anger on Gopolian's face became more intense. He felt that he had never been so angry in his life. The boy in front of him was really enough to make the elf angry. Thinking of this, Gopolian shouted to Kefan, "Boy, there is no point in talking too much. Let's see the truth with our hands." Hearing Gopolian's words, Kefan couldn't help laughing. "It's really interesting, an old man who was half buried in the ground, saying this to a young elf. Really think that Kefan is easy to bully." Thinking of this, Kefan couldn't stand this anger. He said directly to Gopolian, "Old man, come on, we must see who lives and who dies today." After saying that, he raised his fist again and hit Gopolian. Gopolian saw Kefan's actions. He was really speechless. He went straight to Kefan. At this time, Ku on the side was also fighting with Biligin, and compared to the fierce battle between Kefan and Gopolian, the battle between these two elves was unusually elegant. Biligin, who wanted to fight Ku in close combat, could not get close to Ku at all. As soon as he tried to get close to Ku, he was repelled by an invisible spiritual force. Seeing himself like this, Biligin was a little angry. He used skills one after another to attack Ku, but he could not hit Ku at all, and was always counterattacked by Ku's spiritual force. So, not only the Pope was angry, but the Emperor on the side was also furious. He wished he could go on the field and fight Ku himself, but the Emperor still had self-knowledge. He looked at his mortal body, and then at Ku and Biligin's leisurely battle. He stopped his thoughts in his heart. Thinking of this, he could only vent his anger at Biligin. Biligin, who was still on the verge of collapse, heard the Emperor shouting at him, "Biligin, are you three brothers deliberately pretending to be our three brothers? When did you find it so hard to fight?" After saying that, he looked at Zumu and shouted loudly, "Stinky boy, just wait, watch how I deal with you." Zumu, who was still watching the battle, was stunned again when he heard the Emperor's words. "What's the matter? I'm just standing here quietly. What kind of fire can burn me?" Thinking of this, Zumu couldn't stand this anger in his heart. He directly retorted to the Emperor, "That waste over there, don't say these useless things. Just wait and see. You three brothers will go find the fool and the magician together." The Emperor, who was already very angry, heard this, which was tantamount to adding fuel to the fire. He was already very angry, and now he was even more angry. He could only look at Zumu with resentment. Seeing that the Emperor was not talking, Zumu spoke more vigorously and said to the Emperor mockingly, "What Emperor? I am not saying this to you. Are all the Hunters Guild members at your level?" Zumu's words once again reminded the Emperor of the Hunters Guild. He was scolded by Taro. He had something in his mind when he came out. When he heard this, all the big and small things appeared in his mind at this moment. The Emperor only felt a pain in his heart, and then a mouthful of old blood spurted out. Seeing the Emperor's look, Zumu was stunned. "It's not that bad, brother. I just wanted to scold you. Why are you spitting blood? In this state of mind, you still come out to mix in the rivers and lakes?" Seeing the Emperor's look, the Pope standing beside him hugged the Emperor directly. He asked him anxiously, "Second brother, what's wrong with you?" At this time, the Pope looked at Zumu, who had a smile on his face. His heart was full of resentment. Since the years when they brothers mixed in the rivers and lakes, they had never encountered such a thing. In previous battles, the three brothers always ended the battle with an overwhelming victory. Now they met Zumu, the Thorn. "I really felt that my heart was full of anger, but I had no place to vent my anger. It was like a fistful of strength hitting a piece of cotton, abnormally powerless." Seeing this, Zumu pretended to be sincere and said to the Pope, "Brother, I really don't want to make you angry. If you don't believe it, you can look at my expression, it's so sincere." After that, Zumu looked at the Pope with his extremely sincere expression. Seeing Zumu's look, the Pope couldn't help but feel angry at this boy who didn't know the current situation. The Pope didn't know how angry he was today. I'm afraid he was more angry today than in the first half of his life. Thinking of this, The Pope said to Zumu, "Boy, we admit that our mouths are not as sharp as yours, but you wait, these elves of yours and you will die." After that, the Pope's eyes were full of murderous intent. The Pope has never wanted to kill people so much. If looks could kill, Zumu would have died 1,000 times. When Zumu heard the Pope's words, his eyes gradually turned cold. He shouted to Kefen and Ku on the battlefield with a cold tone, "Kefen, Ku, you two hurry up, if it's any later, I'm afraid I'll be dead." Hearing Zumu's words, Kefen and Ku looked at each other directly. They couldn't help but stop playing with each other, but showed their true level. The Pope, who had just finished speaking, only saw Kefen move towards Gopalian in an instant, and instantly flashed behind Gopalian. With a white light shining on his hand, he slashed at Gopalian fiercely. Gopalian, who had no time to react, fell to the ground under Kefen's attack. A large cloud of dust was raised. Gopalian, who slowly stood up, had a look of astonishment in his eyes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.